Hello, everybody. Welcome to Star Wars Badonka Gonk, the only Star Wars podcast
ran by a Gonk.
ran by a Badonka Gonk.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but
We have a hell of a Star Wars show for you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
hello. No, I'm excited. There's some things we're talking about for future Star Wars stuff,
Yep.
future Wave Squadron stuff,
Yep.
and then we have a book to talk about as well.
And we got a book.
So
But to talk about the future, I say, Aaron, we get right into it because we got a lot of stuff we're covering today. We're going to get right into it, and we're all looking forward to Andor Season 2.
are we?
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
I certainly am. Are you going to do yourself a rewatch of the first season before, you think?
I don't know. I was gonna do that with like Daredevil and stuff. I didn't get to do that. I still haven't watched filler that I was trying to watch from Naruto, but
Sure.
I should because there was a lot of stuff that happens in it, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of people in it, and
I
guess I got like a month, right?
I think we have about a month. Yeah.
Okay, I can try to do that
Yeah.
maybe.
I was very proud of my character sheet that I made for Andor, but it became obsolete after like like all the episodes that happened. Like
Well,
I think
sure.
I got to re-up.
Well,
re-up it.
having the time jumps, like sometimes you just lose people, and you're just like, well, now they're not in this part of the story.
Sure.
So I get that.
Yeah, so we are going to be checking out a special look that was released. I think it was released yesterday.
A special look. Huh?
A special look into Andor Season 2. So we're going to start this podcast out with a reaction.
Ooh.
All right,
We've done
so-
those.
Gonk is going to do what they need to do to make sure that we have that up so that we and you can watch it all.
We did do a reaction to a trailer not too long ago for Andor, but this is
Yes.
a special look
This
trailer.
is a special look, so we're
Okay.
going to see what they have in store for us.
All right. What special?
Streaming April 22nd.
Emergency broadcast. If you can hear me.
Okay.
We're not who
Coruscant.
we were when we started.
Imperial ships are already landing.
We need to speak out. We need to stand up.
Is there no one who can help us?
We need a pilot,
Ooh.
a soldier.
Everything I did for the rebellion.
Revolutionary movements are spontaneously happening all over the galaxy.
Lots of
Oh,
brain,
cool,
dude.
man.
Those come
Dude, those
together.
look like those
This is
one
stuff of our story.
Oh, Tony. Ooh, look at that.
Yeah.
If season 1 laid the track, then season 2 is the juggernaut.
Oh, I'm on my phone.
Empire cannot win.
Ooh, look at that interceptor.
Yeah.
Building a real army.
The rebellion's everywhere now.
Galaxy of opportunities.
The insurgents have weapons at this point.
We're counting on it.
What?
That's cool
What is
looking.
that?
Take us over the
Whoa.
next 4 years into Rogue One. The complexity of the show, the possibilities of the show.
The next
Yes.
4
K2s.
years.
All in.
Nobody's allowed in here.
We're thinking like a thief.
I'm thinking like a soldier.
Think like a leader.
Oh, I'm so hyped for Luthen.
The size and scale of this production is unparalleled.
Dude, look at the drones.
sets,
Drones. Ah,
the
look at the
costumes are
aliens.
breathtaking.
Everyone does the homework. Everyone takes the time.
And that
As you
ship,
can
the
tell.
E-Wing.
Proceed.
This is it. This is what you live for.
Ooh.
It's human. It's incredibly truthful. And it just happens to be in a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, nice.
The urgency of the situation.
Oh my god, that thing was crazy. What is that tie?
I don't
man?
know. It's like not like an interceptor, but it looks like an interceptor too.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez. Oh, that was that one too. There, sweet.
Wow. That got me so much more excited than the trailer that we watched.
The other trailer,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
So much more. Holy crap.
Getting some shots of the kind of the behind the scenes aspects of it and stuff is
Uh-huh.
really cool. I like that a lot.
Okay.
The tie is interesting. Like it has the looks of like a tie interceptor, but
Yeah.
there's other aspects of it that look a little bit different. Kind of like Thrawn had the what was the ties that he was making? The
Defenders.
was it tie defenders? Is that what they were?
I think it's TIE Defender.
Like he had their special ties that they were working on. It might be just another version of ties too that.
Which, I
maybe
mean,
not as
if you've
popular.
been a Star Wars fan at any point throughout, it's the Disney era, the EU, special variants of ties is a hallmark throughout fandom. I still remember the tie phantoms that were invisible.
TIE Phantoms?
Yeah, they were the TIE Phantoms, and they had like 3 rather than like 2 sides. They had 3 sides on them, and they could go invisible. And that was in Rebel Assault 2, a video game. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff like that. So we could, a new TIE something or other. I'm not really exactly sure, but I'm excited for Tony Gilroy's specific Star Wars flavor.
Sure.
I felt like that was very fresh and challenging in season 1, and I really want that in season 2.
It feels like the most like grounded, dark Star Wars that I remember. You know what I mean? Like you're not looking at the fantasy of like the Jedi and magic space wizards or any of that kind of stuff. Like it's about people fighting against an oppressive empire. You know what I mean?
It does feel that way.
It feels a lot more grounded in like a not fantasy type of like you're still in that science, like maybe like the science fiction aspect of it, you know what I mean? But not like as much of the fantasy. There's no, Ahsoka had a lot more fantasy in there with like the animals and the way that you connected to the Force and stuff, whereas this seems just very dark and grounded, and it just feels different, but I like getting a chance to see some different aspects.
Its tone is definitely more mature. Like just the idea of that Aldani episode where one single TIE just went down the landscape. Like, just one TIE was terrifying, The reality of what's going on can be and should be terrifying to a certain way of telling the story. And I feel like this show, especially with, they just mentioned here, they're going to be covering 4 years up until Rogue One.
Over 12 episodes.
So we are rushing towards Cassian's tragedy. It's probably not going to be a very happy ending here. There might be one that has the need for hope, but not necessarily hope.
I assume we get to the point where Rogue One starts. We go to the that double asteroid thing. Yeah. Whatever, I can't remember the city.
The Ring of Kafrene.
Like that's where it started. We probably get to the point where he has to go there, I assume, but
maybe. Maybe we can meet Tivik before Cassian kills him in the first scene in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 4 years, I assume if you have 12 episodes, each, like, if they do the same thing, 3-episode arcs are each, like, a year. And then you kind of jump ahead another year and you see what's going on there. And you jump ahead another year, see what's going on there.
Sure.
I think I'm most excited for Mon Mothma. Just, like, we haven't really had a lot of Mon Mothma. Yeah. She usually is, like, a background character or she gets cut. Yeah. And Andor is, like, some of the most Mon Mothma I've gotten to see. And I'm curious on that character especially.
Absolutely. I do feel like we're kind of removing the curse that was put upon us when so many of her scenes were deleted in Revenge of the Sith. And it's almost kind of like making up from literally the same actress coming back 20 years later to do those stories. I'm very happy that's happening. I know that there's some stuff in the EU, like we talked about in the first season. Like, do you think they'll do the Gorman massacre?
Yeah, talk about that.
And at least here in this, I'm seeing this big, giant, open, like social gathering event.
Sure,
could that be it?
And there's they're talking about a swell in like resistance, like members and whatnot, right? Like rebellion and stuff too, and like they know about it. So we could get to something like that and see the horrors of the Empire, which would be. I mean, that's a lot of what we've been seeing in Rogue One and stuff anyway.
I do think, like, Andor Season 1, the greater galaxy at large was starting to understand that, like, I think that most people realize what the Empire is doing, like, this isn't great. But they don't realize this is about to get much, much, much worse, I think this show is going to bring that to everybody. And the need of a rebellion is there that Star Wars, the first Star Wars, delivers. And Rogue One delivers. But in terms of going to Rogue One, like I'm seeing K2SO, Alan Tudyk on set.
Dude, that was cool to get to see like him in his little like mocap kind of suit thing.
And then they had the E-Wing. I guess I shouldn't say the, but at least a.
It looked like
E-Wing,
a E-Wing, yeah.
Which is one of my favorite Disney era ships. Am I right?
U-Wing.
U-Wing. I'm sorry.
U-Wing.
I always go B and E and U and get them mixed up. My bad.
B and E and U. Which one's the E-Wing?
I think I just make that up.
Oh, you made up
I
an
think
E
I
wing?
say B and E, and I go Eric. But yeah, I'm very certain you're right, and that is a U wing.
Yeah, I think it was.
I had to like really teach myself that by going like U boat, U wing.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it looks that one like you said, I guess too. The trailer and what it's showing has me a lot more excited than the initial trailer that we reacted to. So
yeah, that trailer didn't do it for me, but this behind the scenes one definitely did.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm excited for it. I hope that you guys are too. Yeah, I've been trying to think about like the things that I want to see, you know, but then there's the things that I didn't know that I want, like Krennic and what he could be getting up to.
Yeah,
in this,
what's
you know?
Krennic going to be like in this story, and how much do we see of him? Because we got a lot of Empire and Imperials in Andor before already, especially with the ISB and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, do we get to see a little bit more Krennic than we did from Rogue One, and get to see the buildup of the Death Star and stuff?
And I wonder if we'll see more of Saw Gerrera's partisans. Because I think at one point there was a kind of a wide shot with like a big white woolly dude.
Yeah.
In this, and there is I can't remember his name, but there's a guy like that on Saw's partisans. And then we have like
there's one fighting I think on Jeddah, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like during like that fight in Rogue One. I think so.
He's like a Gagoran or something like that.
I don't remember what he's called. I know he's not a Tau.
Gigoran.
Gigoran.
Gigoran. His name is Moroff. That's right. Moroff is how I remember it back in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're maybe seeing more of the partisans, you know, two tubes, both Bethek and his brother, you know, maybe more of that. I'd like to see that because I think it's important to show that when rebellions happen, not everybody's on the same side. Not everybody's at the same level of both trauma and what they're willing to do with that. And I think Saw Gerrera is the perfect catalyst for that, especially when we have a character like Luthen, who seems like he knows what he's doing, but also goes pretty far, you know?
Sure, yeah. Like I feel like him and Mon Mothma are like similar but different in some of those aspects, and which is why I want to see more. I guess with seeing more Mon Mothma, I expect to see more Luthen as well. But I don't know. I want to see the Mon Mothma, Bail Organa building the rebellion to be what they think the rebellion should be.
Sure.
Versus like Luthen and Saw Gerrera, and like they're fighting in a resistance as well, but theirs is a lot more like willing to do exactly what the Empire does versus like I feel like Bail is kind of like I want to help people, but I don't want to be the Empire in order to do it either, you know?
I think Bail and Mon Mothma especially have like an ideal they're striving for, whereas Saw and maybe Luthen more on Saw's side, they have like a reality of what it is versus an ideal. And I mean, that's where you get stuff like General Draven in Rogue One being like, yeah, you know, go get her dad, but kill him, you know, that type of thing. And I think you got to keep Cassian Andor he's a hopeful rebel and he's a friend, sure, but he's also a killer, you know, he's a revolutionary. And we got to keep that intact for up until Rogue One.
Yeah.
Like he starts that movie literally killing his informant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We have to keep that intact or build it more so.
Yeah.
Whichever route they go with it.
So anyway, looks cool. Super excited for that. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here on Wave Squadron because we're reacting to each and every episode of Andor Season 2.
We were talking about things that were coming up in Star Wars.
Yes, sir.
There's the anniversary coming up as well.
We do have an anniversary coming up. We have the Revenge of the Sith 20-year anniversary. May 19th, 2005 was when it came out, and it was my senior year of high school. It was right towards the end of the school year, too, so it was a very amazing time. But, we do have that coming up, and one, I kind of wanted to see I'm pretty sure they're releasing it back in the theaters.
Yeah, they are.
So does anybody like in chat or anything, do you have any plans to celebrate the 20th? But they also released a brand new poster, which is what I wanted to check out. Now, before we do that, do you ever get into the posters with Star Wars? Like, is it a part of the fandom that you get into?
I mean, not necessarily. I remember back during episode 1, I mean, one there was a ton of just merchandise during episode 1. But I remember there was like a 4 poster set maybe from like the Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut grouping or something. And I remember like, I want all, because they were all like all 4 of them kind of connected and made like one long poster.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember trying to get those, but
Dude, there was some fantastic marketing campaigns during
Yeah.
episode 1.
Yeah.
The Pepsi
the Pogs
drinks.
Remember the Pogs?
Oh, the Pogs. I remember the Pogs.
The Pogs had a thing, and I think that was also Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza
Yeah.
Hut. But it was like you had to collect groupings of Pogs in order to like win a prize. And one was like a land speeder, like Luke's land speeder kind of thing.
Yeah.
And another one was like money. And
yeah.
I remember like, oh, I gotta get all the Pogs.
That's awesome.
But I also wanted to get all the Pogs to collect them. I didn't even care about the prizes. I was trying to get all the Pogs.
I collected Pogs for like 2 months when I was young.
Yeah. But we just had the episode 1 anniversary, 25th anniversary?
25th anniversary.
Last year or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was, something like that, because it was 99.
Yeah.
And I took the kids to go see that in theaters. So
Awesome.
I'm probably will go see this in theaters. I've said it before, but I'm fairly saddened at episode 2 not getting put back into theaters. I'm hoping it does for our 25th anniversary or something,
Sure,
because
yeah.
it's the only, since I've been able to go to the movie theaters, it's the only Star Wars movie I haven't seen in theaters that was released. And I don't remember why. I saw episode 1 a lot, and I saw episode 1 at least 4 times, and I saw episode 3 twice.
Gotcha.
And then first time I saw episode 2 was at home on like DVD.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
yeah, you definitely need to experience that movie in the theater. But yeah, so anybody that's out there, check out your local listings. You'll probably have some type of showing near you of Revenge of the Sith, and it's definitely my favorite Star Wars movie experience. Not just because of the movie itself, because like I said, it was my senior year. I had like 30 to 40 of my classmates came, just because they knew that me and my friends were excited.
Sure,
not because
yeah.
they were excited.
They knew
because
you
they
guys
they were supporting us, So that was awesome. But yeah, I wanted to share we're going to lead up to the new poster, but I wanted to see what you thought of some of my favorite posters. I brought 2 from Revenge of the Sith. The first one is the teaser poster, which we're not currently on, Jake. I think I went the cape one.
No, Gonk.
Gonk!
Not Jake.
I call him Jake sometimes and I get upset. But no, this is the teaser poster, which I had this on my wall.
That's a cool.
at
I don't remember
home.
this poster. So this is back originally?
Yeah, so
Then?
this is one of the first posters released for the movie before the movie came out.
The cape looks so like smoky. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
very
kind of cool.
smoky.
I like
Very
that.
smoky, and then obviously it starts just the beginning of going into Vader's mask. But I've always liked this one. One of my favorites. I love the composition of Hayden's face, where you can only see the one eye, but it's scarred.
Sure. You kind of get the left side of the
Yeah.
face of one and the right side of the face of the other, right? So you get like half of Hayden's and then half of Vader's. So
Yeah.
you get half Anakin, half Vader kind of thing there.
A little misleading in that you assume, oh, crap, Hayden's going to have a red lightsaber in this. Oh, my God. That didn't happen.
I suppose so, yeah.
Though I suppose you can say that was a prophecy for 20 years later when eventually in Ahsoka, Hayden will be using a red lightsaber.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
But, yeah, so I like this one. Then
cool.
the next poster that we have is the Drew Strosden? The Drew posters. I mean, this is the conventional.
This is the original, right?
This is the one sheet. You get Drew Strosden. I can't say his last name. I don't know, but he's the guy that did all the illustrations for like all of the DVDs.
Okay.
Like I think that the sequels did a version of these too. I'm not 100% sure, but these were always like you're waiting for this poster. So I quite like this one. I think it's super classic, but. Now, 20 years later.
I mean, that one looks familiar, so
Yeah.
I recognize that one more.
So you would have had this probably on the DVD.
Probably, yeah.
But now we have the brand new
Ooh.
20th anniversary poster, and it is quite dark Anakin.
It's a lot darker of a like the other one has
Yeah.
like the other one we just looked at has a little bit more hope. You see a
does.
lightsaber fight, you see Yoda coming in,
do.
you see like other aspects of good people, but this doesn't have good people.
It doesn't.
It has bad people except for those 2 guys fighting down there.
Uh-huh.
You know?
But I mean, we're covering a lot of the movie. The top here, we had the Battle of Coruscant, into Vader's helmet, down to angry Anakin, and then the Mustafar battle. I think it's an extremely well done poster. And yeah, we're highlighting returns to theaters April 25th.
April 25th. Yeah,
So-
I'm going to have to make sure we go see that.
Yeah,
I heard they were doing like a 4DX, but there's like no 4D
Not for
theaters
us.
around for like 5 or 6 hours from us. So I'm not gonna do that.
What would the 4DX?
I don't
What
know.
would it be?
I don't know. They throw lava on you. I don't know what they do.
Like, what do you do for
your seat heats up?
What do you do for space? Because I know it's a Star Wars and it's fantasy, but you technically shouldn't have any sensation because it's a vacuum.
I mean, you could be cold.
You can't be cold.
Whenever they're on Kashyyyk and riding through the water and the Wookiee jumps onto the thing, like maybe water splashes up and you get water mist on you or something, I don't know.
You just do like pyrotechnics for the Battle of
But
Mustafar?
I think they said there's like 20 effects that
20
they have
effects.
while you watch it. And I'm like, man, I don't know what they are, but it sounds cool. When Anakin picks up the Palpatine and starts carrying him, like you're just...
Sure, right?
I don't know what happens.
I wonder when you're designing 4DX stuff, like, do you try to match what people think they would perceive or what they actually would perceive? Because I heard this. I heard this from an article. I was reading an article from astronauts about what space smells like.
Okay.
And they everybody reports a different thing, but it smells like burnt steak. And I'm like, burnt steak. I just imagine I go to a 4DX and they're doing a space scene and they just pump in burnt steak. I'd be like, what the? What? You guys messed up?
So when you say that they smell space, like what is that?
I don't know.
What does smelling space mean?
They
like
just say
when
that's
they're
what it
in
smells like.
space, their ship smells like that? Because by the same thing you're saying, I don't think they're going outside on a spacewalk and be like,
like maybe that's what their spacewalk suit smells like when it comes back in. They smell from the outside. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I've never heard that before, so that's why I was wondering.
I've heard different descriptions, and none of them are what you expect it to smell like. But I guess I don't have expectations either.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't expect space to have a smell, I guess, because it doesn't have a whole lot, but...
They just take all the air out of the room. No one can breathe.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know what it'd be, but it sounded like a neat idea.
It does sound like a lot of fun. So anybody that has a 4D theater, let us know and report back right here in Badonkagonk.
Yeah. I'd like to know what they can do.
Alrighty. Those were some of the posters. The next thing, Aaron, that I wanted to talk about, because we are a Star Wars podcast, we do have a Star Wars YouTube channel, and it would be a mistake for us not to talk about Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get views?
I heard.
You want people to click? Let's talk about how Kathleen Kennedy is done.
She's retiring, right?
She's done.
Done with Star Wars?
Pretty sure fired.
She's fired.
I think.
I've heard that she's fired for years.
Yeah, but this time's for real, dude.
Is it?
I got to mention to you that I was wearing a Star Wars shirt, and I went to the gas station in Devola, and the guy working behind, this was 2 years ago, the guy working behind the counter was like, hey, did you hear the news today? And I go, what do you mean? He's like, they canceled that. They finally canceled and fired that stupid Kathleen Kennedy that's ruined Star Wars. I'm like, they did? They're like, yeah, she's gone. Like, they haven't reported it yet, but he was like pulling out people that were talking about it. It's like, they got the information. I was like, oh my gosh, wow. I can't wait to go home and read about it. I'm not interested in having, like, art war like some people are. But I was like, oh, okay. And the next time I saw him, I was like, I heard that Kathleen Kennedy thing didn't work out. He's like, yeah, it'll happen. But he was very adamant it was happening. But no, there were rumors that came out that the retirement was happening. But from what I understand, it's not the case still.
So she's not retiring.
Because we were going to have this discussion about, well, who do you think should replace her and that type of thing.
What?
Gonk was saying something. But yes, we do have the deadline report up here, and I have specifically a quote from this report that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Which I should have had just available to me, but people keep posting on my phone. Okay.
Posting.
Yeah. Sorry, the notifications came up. All right, so this is from Kathleen Kennedy. The truth is, and I just want to say loud and clear, I am not retiring. I will never retire from movies. I will die making movies. That is the first thing that's important to say. I'm not retiring. What's happening at Lucasfilm is I have been talking for quite some time with both Bob and Alan about what eventual succession might look like. We have an amazing bench of people here, and we have every intention of making an announcement months or a year down the road. We are in lockstep as to what will be, what that's going to be. And I am continuing. I'm producing Mandalorian, the movie, right now, and I'm also producing Sean Levy's movie, which is after that. So I'm continuing to stay at Lucasfilm and looking very thoughtfully with Bob and Alan as to who is stepping in. So that is all underway, and we have every right to make the announcement when we want to make it. So she is continuing the work, Aaron.
Okay. Yeah, because I heard and like I saw like, oh, Kathleen Kennedy's done with Star Wars, and I was like,
I just thought it was funny because, like when the first thing dropped like last week or whatever, and it felt like, oh no, this actually might be the time, and it's like, oh okay, that's it. I'll go check it out because I personally just don't like focusing on the business side of Star Wars sometimes. It's just not why I'm here. I'm interested, but I don't go looking for it. So when I had to go look for, well, we'll talk about in the Badonka Gonk.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. It's not happening.
Sure. Well, because some of
with
it's
the plan of it happening in like a year or so.
some of it, like you said, is like, well, who should like take up the reins from whenever she moves on? It seems like what they're talking about too. But like, you go the route of having someone like Dave Filoni being brought in, or do you go the route of having like Kevin Feige or something like that? And who's a good like replacement for that position? And I don't know, but I know a lot of people don't like Kathleen Kennedy because they haven't liked the newer Star Wars stuff. I think some of the newer Star Wars stuff, there's been some real good. There's been some like not as good. There's been some that are just kind of in the middle. But there's a lot of stuff I think Kathleen Kennedy's worked on that is some of my favorite stuff that I've watched, favorite movies and stuff in general. Whether
she's had a hand in some very important things.
Whether it's Star Wars or not, like there's tons of stuff. I mean, she's also worked on some stuff where I'm like, well, that one didn't work out. But sometimes everything's going to be a home run. Some things are just going to like maybe get you to base.
And I mean, a position like that, like one service that she does, and I think that she handles pretty well, is to be a target. So that your artists aren't getting attacked over and over again. Well, do it to the person that's in charge. You know?
Sure. Which I guess I'd rather that happen versus like the I can't think of her name right now. Rose, right?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that.
Kelly
or
Marie Tran.
how much dislike happened to Jake Lloyd, or all these things. Hayden Christensen went through a lot. Ahmed Best. Like instead of targeting these people who were just acting and doing their job, like if you're like, I really hate these movies, then like looking at the higher ups, I'd rather that go
George
that way.
Lucas was targeted so much he sold Star Wars. He's like, you guys have ruined the fun this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that whenever Kathleen was hired by George, and then the Disney thing over there, she has kind of fallen into, I don't know if intentionally is the right word, but fallen into the role of taking a lot of heat, so that artists can still, storytellers can still perform that, perform that art. And whoever does eventually wind up in that role, I hope they still encourage and hire different storytellers to tell different stories. I don't want this. I feel like every time something comes along and people really like it, they say, oh, this is great. Have this person do everything from now on. Like, I don't want that. I love Dave Filoni, but I don't want him doing everything. No.
I
want him to try new things that he likes to do.
The thing I like to have with like someone like Dave Filoni or whoever, Kevin Feige, for the most part, I think, has done well with MCU. But like mainly, I think it's the what do they call it? The whatever Bible kind of thing, where it's like, here's what the story is.
Sure.
Here's our canon. How does your story fit in with our canon? And just making sure that things don't overlap and cause a bunch of conflict, because that's what people get upset about a lot, right?
Sure.
I mean, even the extended universe, like the old EU, had weird stuff where it's like, well, this doesn't really match with what we have here. That's why Shakti's died like 3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah, even Bill died a couple times.
Yeah. So like just those kind of aspects, I think, is what I'd like to make sure someone is able to do, but not not crushing the creativity of Skeleton Crew isn't a traditional, I don't think, Star Wars kind of story. I think it was a fun fantasy, like a coming of age kind of story, more like Goonies. Yeah. And I don't usually look at Goonies and like A New Hope as like, oh, they're the same. There's more, I think, sci-fi fantasy stuff happening than in the Goonies. But I loved what Skeleton Crew did, and I also have loved what a lot of the other stories have done.
It felt like what Clone Wars was, or George Lucas was specifically trying to do with Clone Wars, which is like tell different topics and tones in the same story. Yes, in Star Wars, but whereas he would do, here's my Seven Samurai, here's my Godzilla.
Yeah.
We're literally doing this like, here's my Goonies.
Here's my Goonies
which
story.
I think is pretty fun. A cool way of going about it.
And then you just get to see other parts of the galaxy. You get to see new creatures, like the Bendu is like a mystery, but I've met it and I've seen some of the things it can do. But maybe in the future, in a different story, we'll get a little bit more information on who or what that is exactly. versus like, you know, maybe that's not what Andor's going to have, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
But
I'd love to see the Bendu give advice to a Sith.
Yeah, sure.
Like, we've seen him do it to a Jedi, but he should relatively be able to mentor a dark side user too.
Yeah.
In the same way. Right?
Like, I think there's so many cool and unique stories you could do in Star Wars.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But when we want it all to feel the same and be the same, we lessen that creativity to get those. So I hope that, whoever takes the reins maybe looks at canon and trying to keep consistency at the most, but not squashing creativity.
I find that I'm a little confused by what the Lucasfilm story group does. Because I feel like those guys should be the people that like
watching over the
are
canon
making
and stuff.
sure like, hey, you know, we have some interconnectivity. We're not directly contradicting anything, you know, but not at the disservice or, you know, of the artist, but in service of them, you know, like, again, I don't know how they do it, but I can imagine being, you know, looking through a script and seeing like, hey, this conflicts here, here, and here, but because I'm part of the story group, I know this stuff like the back of my hand, I can give some suggestions that don't change the spirit of what you're doing, but just makes it fit in a little bit better.
Sure.
You know?
It's those things where it's like, well, instead of maybe bringing in this character, what if you used this character?
Sure.
And you get the same feeling and story beats, but this guy shouldn't be here. He'd be busy over here or something.
So then you can have whoever, you know, if you can figure, maybe if we could just get more information of how that works, then I could be like, okay, someone that eventually replaces Kathleen Kennedy then just needs to be somebody that goes out and finds talent.
Sure.
And then you direct that talent to be like, what stories are important to you? What would you like to say in the Star Wars universe? And go from there, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It's like a talent hunter.
Exactly. But, I mean, if that's going to happen, we need talented artists out there. I know there's a lot of people that will watch something and be, this sucks, it's not up to my standard. And I can sometimes enjoy that, but I would so much rather people take that and be like, okay, you got a standard? Please go make something. We need people that have those standards to be the future storytellers and visual effects artists and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you get started by just doing it, you know? So, like, I hope people, like, take that feeling of, like, oh, I didn't like this thing. Be like, okay, well, then go out and be somebody that producers are going to look for, you know, that can make stuff.
Yeah.
And you can share that standard with other people, you know, in a positive way.
Yeah. No, I love being able to see stories where people seem to really care and they have the passion for it.
Sure.
Versus it's just like, I'm just here and doing this because it's my job. I love when it's like, oh, man, we have a great Star Wars story, and I want to tell you about this. And
definitely.
Those are always really, really fun, I think.
Yep. So anyway, Kathleen is sticking around at least for another, I don't know, year or so, a couple months to a year.
It sounds
or
like
so.
she's staying around until she dies.
Well, she said something similar to what Lucas said, which Lucas, when he gave up Star Wars and retired, he didn't say, I'm done making movies. He said, I'm done making movies for other people. He's like, I'm going to make movies in my garage. Just kind of how he talked about it. I'm going to make movies just for me.
Does he have a volume? Is that part of the deal with Disney?
mean, the volume is George Lucas's realized dream.
Sure, yeah. I just imagine like part of like when he was like selling, like, all right, I'm going to sell this, but in my garage, I need a volume. Give me one of those, please.
So I imagine that means that if Kathleen's not in charge of Lucasfilm, she's still going to be out there making movies, you know, regardless of if they're attached with the company or not. Yeah,
interesting.
Because I mean, it's in her blood. She's been doing it forever.
Dude, yeah.
And if you just go and find a list of all the projects he's been attached to, you're going to find at least 15 things that are very important.
There's a ton of Spielberg stuff. She worked on Indiana Jones. She worked on Gremlins, Goonies. Worked on, man, I don't even know what all it was. I mean, there's some movies that people don't like as much, but Jurassic Park, she worked on that.
Back to the Future.
All three Back to the Futures.
Yeah.
Like all three of them.
Just those alone are important to me.
Yeah. So, like, there's so much that she's done. Josh Tate sent in a super chat. It says,
Josh.
Kathleen Kennedy gets a bad rep, but so much of Lucasfilm that she's been involved with has been so good. There are obviously some misses, but every producer has those. And I think every director has those. Like, if you go and look at even just directors where it's like, oh, these movies, and it's usually for an individual, right? It's more of their preferences, but they're like, you take a big director, you'll be like, I love these 5 movies, and I didn't really like these 2 or 3 movies, you know? Like, I can do that with probably any director, really. Like, picking out M. Night or picking out, you know, Nolan or, you know.
I believe she was involved with The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense? I think so, yeah.
I think so.
I think there's been some M. Night stuff that, So, Kathleen's done a ton of movies. They're not all the best movies, but some of them are the best movies, you
Sure,
know, like,
yeah.
or at least childhood movies, I think, is like what I'm looking at more. The ones I had like nostalgia for because I watched them as a kid and they like shaped my love of movies.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, you know, like that kind of stuff, Goonies, like those are some of my favorite stories.
I agree. And while I also agree with Josh in that, you know, everybody has misses. I think that we as like a society focus on the misses as opposed to not anymore. But misses are important. You know, like Patrice O'Neill, he's one of the best comedians to have ever lived. He's not with us anymore. But he talks about like, look, when I'm coming up with a joke, they all come from the same spot, the same place. I don't know they're funny until someone laughs. you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
Like you don't know if an idea you have is good until someone appreciates it or doesn't, you know? And it's a little easier to do that with comedy than it is something like a movie.
Yeah.
Because you got to spend millions and millions and millions to realize a vision here. Comedy, you can just go into a comedy club and tell some jokes.
Yeah.
And, you know,
You're telling
write down what worked, what didn't, and change.
Yeah, and that's to 50 people or 100
Exactly.
people or, you know, whatever, this small group.
Yeah.
And like, well, I'll change it for the next one, you
Yeah.
know, whoever's in that group.
But I always like what he said about, like, look, my worst jokes and my best jokes all came from the same place of inspiration. I just had to figure it out, you know? I think that there needs to be some grace when it comes to all art with something like that. You know, they're not all going to be hits, but when it hits, it hits. Mm-hmm. And when it misses, it's important to remember it. Just because it misses for you doesn't mean it misses for anybody else.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, who did the Mona Lisa?
Da Vinci.
Whoever, yeah. So whoever did these artworks, like there's ones they're known for, and there's ones that they don't, that no one looks at, no one talks about, you know.
But then he created that flying machine for Altair in Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah, he did that. Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I think it was Assassin's Creed 2. Was that one?
He was in that one. Yeah, he was in that one. All right. Well, there's what we found for Kathleen Kennedy.
Absolutely.
I was surprised that that's the route, because whenever I saw him, like, oh man, this seems like it's the real, like she's really stepping down.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
No, like I said, the news that
yeah.
dropped a week ago or something was like, okay, maybe our next segment will be who's going to be the next. But I looked at it, I'm like, oh, okay, we don't have to do that yet.
You don't have to worry about that yet.
I just thought it was funny that, oh, another one?
Yeah,
It's been 10 years.
got you again. All right. Well, then, I think that the next thing that we need to move into is talking about our book that we did. I am curious, chat or chats, who has read the Thrawn book, Greater Good? Because I was curious on some thoughts of who read it and what your guys' thoughts were with it.
Yes.
Mainly because this one, for me, and a lot of times I usually try to look at things of like, I think it's my fault. But this one I did not do well with. I think a lot of it was, I've talked before about my like lack of internal imagination.
I get what you mean.
Like my visualization of things.
Yeah.
I do so much better when we did Brotherhood, or when we did like, here's the Count Dooku story, or here's a Mace Windu story.
Sure.
Like I'm pulling from things that I kind of already
if I
have
tell you,
visions
Aaron,
for.
imagine an X-Wing. You could probably do it.
Yeah, I pull out like Luke's X-Wing,
But if I say, Aaron, this is imagine a starfighter you've never seen before. It has
It's an E-wing.
It has 7 thrusters. It
Yeah.
runs on this type of oil. That type of thing. And you're gonna be like, okay, you probably have like a loose idea of some type of form, but it's hard to focus on it because you don't know what it is. You can't focus.
It doesn't really gel into my mind.
Yeah.
And I think this book here, there's Thrawn, which I love Thrawn, and I think he's great in the book for the most part. But he's also not super focused on, really. Like he's in there, but
of all the Thrawn books, and this is the 5th one that we've read, I do feel like this is the one that was featured the least.
Yeah.
And that means that you have to feature a lot of other Chiss names.
Yep. Which I also I had a lot of trouble with a lot of Chiss names.
Me too.
Chiss families.
Yeah.
And Chiss ships and worlds and other aliens that aren't the other aliens I already know.
Sure.
So like I think that was all against me on this, because I feel like I just had a lot of trouble like really getting focused on like what all was happening, keeping all the information straight.
Yeah.
Just in general. And maybe some of it's like there's a lot of Chiss politics in this one between like Chiss families. And
well, I mean, yeah, that is kind of the crux of this story, right? Is like showing the weakness that the Ascendancy doesn't realize is so close.
Yeah.
They think they're so unified, and we're showing, no, you're not. you can go into Civil War pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we learn is a route being taken by a few to like look at a civil war among the Chiss. I mean, there's things I did like.
Yeah, I mean, just for me as well, I think I'm right there with you. In terms of my enjoyment of this one, I love Timothy Zahn, and while I still enjoyed this book, this is probably the one I've enjoyed the least. There were a couple times, especially in like the memories chapters, where I wasn't comprehending some of the stuff I was reading, and I really had to go back. I also, this last month has just been kind of like weird for me anyway, separate from trying to read the book, but it was harder because of it. And yeah, there were times where I found myself kind of almost wanting to skip ahead on some stuff, and I never feel that way with Star Wars books. I never want to skip ahead. And there was a couple times here where I was like, I feel so lost that I think I just want to skip to the part I like.
Sure, yeah.
Which is generally Thrawn stuff.
Sure, yeah. And like the Thrawn moments are in there, and like some of the combat aspects and stuff. Like he's always really good at combat. He's really good at figuring things out.
Sure.
I still kind of, and maybe we get into it. Maybe I don't know how the third book will wrap up with anything, but sometimes I want to see like a failure among Thrawn, and like I don't feel like I ever see.
So does a lot of people.
I don't think I've ever see a failure.
Well, that's the frustration of some of our antagonists, right? It's like that guy won't stop winning.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Like there was an aspect where I'm like, oh man, what if you do get Thrawn to be wrong about something, and it's like something he has to come back from? But maybe
you got his political weakness.
Yeah, sure.
To show that he's not great.
But they lean into that. Dang. Trying to remember his name. I'm pretty sure it's Jack Nicholson. Chiss. Not Thurfian, because he's the new patriarch now.
Yeah.
It's like one of his side command guys.
Right now.
Next is probably gonna remember what his name is, but he in the audiobook they make him sound like Jack Nicholson, and I always recognize
Samarco.
Yeah, him.
Samarco.
He recognizes Thrawn's really good at military stuff, but really bad at politics. And I really liked. I mean, one of his stories in this was looking at. Oh man, did I write it down? Her name. She was in it before. Thalia. Thalia, is that it?
I think it's Thalia. The.
I feel like I'm missing a letter, but yeah, something like that. But like
Thalius.
Something like that. Yeah, I think there's an S in there.
I think there's an S at the end.
Thalius. But that he's looking at her as being like a traitor and a spy, and there's like some weird like espionage kind of stuff that he's looking at or doing. But then we get to the end, and there's like, here's a combat thing going on, and he's asked like, do you think Thrawn's trying to do this to help the myth? And he's like, he doesn't think like that.
Yeah,
he's like, he is not a political. He just would not. If he says there's a danger and we need to work together for a military might, he means there's a danger and we need to work together for a military might. And I really enjoyed that aspect of that character, who he has his issues with Thrawn and what he thinks is going on, but he's also recognized what Thrawn's strengths and weaknesses are, and doesn't use like the politics side against him. He knows what he's doing, and I thought that was cool.
I agree, and I am trying to. One, I know that this trilogy is more focused on the ascendancy itself than it is necessarily the first Thrawn trilogy, which was really kind of going back and giving us a prequel era look into what that guy was like.
Sure.
And then we had the roadmap of what he's like in Rebels, which is very different than what, at least I should say, feels very different than how he's presented in the last trilogy and this trilogy. And I'm trying to think why that is. And one of those reasons is Thrawn has this thing, it's especially apparent in his lack of understanding of politics, but I feel like he has this thing where he just kind of assumes that everybody has the same, not morals, but the same convictions that he does. I don't think he realizes that people differ in all of those things. And then eventually, when he's hunting the rebels, you can see that he understands that way more. He understands what Hera is about to do because he's studied how people think about that type of thing. And not just about art, but about how they feel about politics.
Sure. Politics, their culture.
Yeah. It's not like politics is weird because you can study what politics are all day long, but half of politics is how people feel about politics, not what politics are. I don't think Thrawn is there yet where he is closer to that in Rebels, and then eventually Ahsoka and that type of thing, where he's gonna fall more into the big bad of the Dave Filoni movie. I'm assuming is what we're going for.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Unless he knows of a greater evil and he's trying to stop that, right? Like that's
True.
kind of the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this here, where like they're talking about there's something else causing this kind of stuff to happen, and we meet Jixtus in this, and there's like some, you know, he's kind of like that behind the curtain Palpatine kind of character that's like manipulating things and having other people like what Hapleaf, who's like he's sending in there to like find things out. Like he really wants to know how they traverse the chaos and stuff, and like it's interesting. Kind of,
it's a good foil to Thrawn, who also is an information gatherer and analyzer.
Yeah. So like we don't really know what his story is or what happens to the Chiss Ascendancy or exactly why Thrawn ends up in our galaxy, right? Like we get told what he says, but I don't know that all that is necessarily truthful. Or like, does he fail among this ascendancy story that we have, and that's why he gets sent there instead of being a big member of the Chiss? I don't know exactly what happens. But.
And we also have to just point out that because these are different artists and authors, I should say, playing with the same character, like Dave Filoni's Thrawn's gonna be a little bit different than Zahn's, right?
Yeah.
Just in terms of like what they want that character to feel like and be in terms of the role of the story, the protagonist versus the antagonist. But I feel like as we go on into this second trilogy, I'm getting a lot more loose with the idea of it needing to feel like the same internal character, you know? Like I'm just kind of learning different things about a character, not like the character.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
I think I get you.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of the stuff in the story I thought was interesting. There was some stuff with Thrawn that I liked. The story they had with the Magus. It was like the matriarch of a world, and their world has like been destroyed, and her solution was like, all my people are gonna,
like, I'm gonna kill myself.
We're gonna all kill ourselves.
Everyone kills themselves when I kill myself.
And then like we go into the beyond, which is like kind of like their force.
It's
I
their
think.
Force, yeah.
But then like we go into the force, and then we will repair the planet for future people.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's kind of cool, I guess, like the idea of that.
Yeah.
But Thrawn is like, well, we should go and investigate and make sure. And he had a line that I really liked. I thought I wrote it down where. He asks what the planet name is, and he's like, we don't tell people what our planet name is. And he's like, well, we'll call it Sunrise. And she goes, oh, you're gonna mock the loss of my planet by calling it something like happy and cheerful like that?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm holding on to hope. And I was like, I think it was interesting to have like Thrawn, who like is very like not emotional in a lot of the things he does.
He's logical.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm holding on to hope that your people still survive. And I it was just, I don't know. In Rebels, you don't necessarily get those kind of moments. But in this, I love the idea of how he is like, I mean, he is our protagonist. He is kind of like looking out for the Chiss and for others, for allies and stuff. But this was just a different moment for Thrawn than what I was expecting, I guess, for him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works really well, especially considering what we've seen of the Ahsoka Thrawn from the Ahsoka series, where he's much more interested and thinking about how the Dathomirian witches operate, and he seems to be doing something with that. I've always thought Thrawn is like, he's like the quintessential materialist, where he doesn't necessarily value the mythical or the spiritual or the supernatural because he can't measure it, because by definition it can't be measured, right?
Sure.
So he likes to measure the material, but he'll treat the supernatural as the natural. He's like, I can't measure it, but I'm still going to have it in my things I can do something about, you know?
Sure.
So I feel like having him say something like that is kind of the flip side of like, and when I need to, I'll use this stuff to my advantage, hardcore, with witches, you know?
With witches.
Yeah, later.
Sure. It is interesting that, like, you know, he's seen the Bindu, he's seen witches, he's seen things, and it's
but
like...
you never feel like it's changing his worldview. He's just like, that's weird. Anyway, you know what's still stronger than that? Logic.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Tactics.
There was it the last book where it felt like he got surprised a little bit, but, like, was really interested, so he just wanted to dive in more. Yeah. Whenever he met Skywalker. He's like, wait, your name is Skywalker? Interesting. You know, like it's like we have Skywalkers, but the Skywalkers are different. You know,
and the idea, or there's a point in the book where he really thinks about the like what is the Force. He doesn't know the answer to that question, but possibly the answer to that question are dead people. Like your body becomes the Force,
yeah,
and then what does that mean when you say the will of the Force? Are you talking about like the will of a thing that's an agent and tells us what to do, or is it a collective will of everything that came before?
Yeah.
Is there no difference between those two things? I don't think Thrawn can comprehend those questions necessarily, but they do factor into his thought process somehow.
And it's interesting the Force aspect, because the Skywalkers don't really seem to like know or understand exactly how that stuff kind of works.
Right.
Like in here, they talk too about like, man, I'm trying to remember. It's the caretaker is talking to like about Cherry.
Yeah.
Cheery.
There's Skywalker.
About
our third sight.
Well, they're talking about like when she's resting and being like give her more time because this is the time that this should be going. So give her like 15 more minutes. Yeah. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, it's just whenever I was a Skywalker, like having this time kind of helped me because this is like the deepest. It almost sounds like when you get REM sleep or something like that, where it's like you give yourself this much time, you get into a deeper slumber, and then you're easier to be woken up kind of later on.
More effective.
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And it was Smarkov. Dang it, Jack Nicholson. It was that guy again. I hated these names. There's so many names.
The names are tough.
And sometimes like someone gets promoted or changes families and they change the name on me, and I'm like, dang it. But Samacro, yeah, Samacro. And he was so interesting. Like, why isn't this how we operate all the time? It's like, well, I don't know. No one really knows, and it's just easier, you know. Like, but it's like no one really understands how the Skywalkers do it. And then whenever talking to the Magus, talking about the Beyond, and she was comparing it to their Skywalker ability, but they didn't really understand that right away either.
Sure.
So like all of that kind of ties into the same Force, but people don't know exactly what it is or how it operates. And it's another one of those steps of like the Night Sisters or the web that we had in the Mace Windu book, like just all of these Force aspects. And also out here in the chaos and everything of the Chiss and all that also has Force, but it's different, not understood exactly the same, maybe not even understood entirely at all.
Well, they all have an understanding of it, but when they compare their understandings, they don't match, which I think is awesome for a mystical Force.
Yeah. Well,
it's like we think we can. I feel how much is here, but you can't actually measure it. I think is a fun way to jump into the fantasy of it. But that's why a character like Thrawn, who is all logic, I think is a real cool juxtaposition. You know?
Yeah.
So I appreciated those elements in this.
Yeah.
I do think too that we've had a little bit of a gap since the last book and this one, you know? So it did, like, especially at the beginning of this, I had to keep going like, who's that one though? With the names.
Sure.
I feel like how you probably feel when we watch Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, there's a lot of names.
Some
of them are similar.
Yeah.
You're like,
and
wait,
if I had a buddy that was sitting there going like, you idiot, to this, you know, I would probably pick it up quicker.
Sure.
Like when I do that for you.
Yeah,
with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Wait, is that this guy? No. That's you're confusing this guy and this guy.
It's not Sauron.
Okay.
It's Saruman. Come on.
well, who's Sauron? Yeah. So maybe that's a little bit of it. I don't know, but I mean, some of the general overarching stories and stuff, like Thurfinn was a big part of this, and he's not for Thrawn. He's trying to work against Thrawn.
Not.
But by the end of it, like he has grown in status to like the highest rank of the myth. I think it was right.
He's the speaker. I think is what they call him.
He's
right?
He's a patriarch.
Patriarch.
I forget what the title was. It patriarch or was it speaker? Because he was syndic. Dang it, I gotta look this because I wrote it down.
You wrote it down?
I thought it was interesting that he became the patriarch of the myth, but he was something else beforehand. Syndic Prime. He was Syndic Prime.
Syndic Prime.
And then he became, I think, the
matriarch.
The matriarch or patriarch or whatever.
Patriarch would be
patriarch. Magus was the matriarch, I think, of the
Magus is the matriarch of her species.
the potatoes or something.
Mash them, put them in a stew.
I don't remember exactly what it was. Patatas? The patatas?
And Nexus is right. Like, hey, the physical book actually has all the different levels within the that was one of the things like the older you had. It's like, hey, when does this take place? Oh, there's a whole timeline on here.
Sure.
On the back.
Yeah.
So, I think that I might transition to reading the physical books.
If I
at least in the winter.
If I had both, I would just do both.
Yeah.
Melanie's been doing some some stuff that she has this speech thing that will just read stuff from books for her, it's homework kind of stuff. So if you had a paper you had to read and write something about, it would highlight the word it's on and say it for you.
Cool.
But she has it sped up to 2 times speed, and I'm I can't understand what they're saying.
Can't
but
do that, yeah.
if you were reading along, wow, your mind, have you ever done the bold words thing?
Yeah.
Where the first half of the word or the first 4 letters are boldened, and your brain just kind of fills it in for you without having to That was the fastest I've ever read in my life. Was having.
Really?
Gonk, calm down.
What's happening?
Calm down, Gonk. I
What
don't
an
know what you're doing
interesting
there.
noise.
That's a weird noise, but.
I think he just updated.
I think if I had the audio with the visual, but just the book, it doesn't tend to help me as much. I don't think.
Okay.
And then the most of the audiobooks I think I do okay with. This one though, I did not.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did okay with the last Thrawn Ascendancy book.
Mm-hmm.
But we also tied into the Anakin story from before in Thrawn and some other
There's
aspects.
some.
It was a lot of
there's
Thrawn.
some milestones you can build around. Whereas this one, I felt even more than the last Ascendancy book, you're kind of remember this stuff, guys. You're an adult. You can do it.
Yeah.
that type of thing. And I was like, crap, I'm not an adult. I couldn't do it. But no, I just like I said, I've just been having an off month anyway. But I might switch to the physical copies and then do audio during the summer when I'm outside doing stuff.
Sure, yeah. I get you.
Right now, I'm just cooped up inside because it's cold.
But there's a lot of work and a lot of interesting stuff in this book. So I want to take the blame on me, but maybe some of it's the book. I have no idea. I've only done so much of books. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But some of the story stuff I really like. I like Thurfian.
Yeah.
I like Thrawn and Arlani. Those are definitely some of my favorites.
One of my favorites.
There was a newer character in this that it was the Grey Shrike.
Mm-hmm.
Lucinda, who isn't Lucinda anymore. There's a new name for them, I think.
She has a new name
because I think they got, or maybe they were thinking about. I don't know. I don't know if she accepted going to a new family or not.
I get you.
But their name might be different now.
Yeah.
But
she was the one that's he really knows what he's doing. That learns every book.
Yeah. Well,
he learned this time.
The battles and stuff they had, they compared. I didn't think anyone could do combat as well as Thrawn, but Lucinda does a really good job as well. And the end kind of battle of the Chiss families that were about to fight each other, but then they had to work together against. Oh, that Chiss guy is needing help with other ships chasing after him.
Yeah.
Thrawn and her both worked really well in that situation to get that kind of fixed and at least not start any civil wars right now.
Sure, yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. But Thurfian, and then this is going to go into the next book, which I'll be excited to see what that is. But there were they said about closely guarded secrets in the Myth family, which I wonder what that history and stuff that we don't know what that stuff is. But then they also mentioned the weapon.
They mentioned the weapon.
Whatever that is too.
What was it called again? The
Starflash?
When I first read it, I was when I first heard it, I was like, Starfish?
Starflash. The Starfish. Yeah, I think it's Starflash.
Sure.
Which, once again, I don't know where everything goes with the next book. If any of this at all ties into any other Thrawn, the Ahsoka and what he's doing, I don't know. You're
not sure.
If Jixtus pushes Thrawn out, and Thrawn fails, thus that means he gets sent to the other galaxy. Is Jixtus and the Starflash a big threat that he's trying to make sure that he stops,
Sure.
I have no idea. I'm going to assume not, because this, I think, was all done before any of that other stuff was done. Mm-hmm. Maybe Rebels, and that was it. But I'm always interested in, an overarching story that, we can tell you this story over here, and you don't need to know this.
Yeah.
But if you know this, there's some cool nods that you're going to get with this stuff.
Sure.
But,
yeah. The Starflash thing, immediately my mind goes to Starkiller, because that literally flashes the power of a star, right? into the the Hosnian system.
Yeah.
In The Force Awakens, there was the Sun Crusher, which would like fire a thing at a star and blow it up, and that was in the old EU.
Was that the one that was involved with Chewbacca?
No,
Because that was from a weapon too, right?
That was from a moon falling.
Oh, it wasn't a weapon that caused.
It might have
to
been
fall?
a weapon, but like something caused a moon to fall into a planet and kill a bunch of people.
Is the Star Crusher a weird golden drill-looking thing?
Yeah.
I have a memory of some
like
kind
a big,
of
like,
picture I've
it's
seen.
like a space pyramid, but small, kind of. And I think Kip Duran was. It was like the around.
Kip Duran. He was a really good pilot. I've heard that name. I think, right?
He was a good pilot, but yeah, he's it's during like the Jedi Academy stuff.
Or maybe he was bad at the Force, but he was good with animals.
That is Coran Horn.
Oh, Coran Horn. Okay.
Coran Horn.
There's like
is
random
bad
known names that I recognize from EU, but I haven't read them enough.
Coran
to know.
Horn was bad at telekinesis, but good at mind tricks.
Okay.
So like he can't move the rock, but he can tell ants to move the rock.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of that before and stuff.
And then there was Kip Duran. So he was like Luke Skywalker's first class of like 12 Jedi. He was like the most powerful of them.
I remembered a story that was like this crazy piloting exercise through like asteroids, and like Han Solo and Chewbacca run through it and did like a really good job.
Yeah.
But I think like Kip or someone flew through it and did better than they did or something like that. I remember some kind of story revolving around that. And I was like, well, that's a neat story.
Yeah.
But I think he was also maybe either a really good pilot or Force sensitive or something.
I think it was both.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I remember them when they had Kip in the old EU. Luke had developed this technique to find out if you had the Force. He would talk about there's a very specific spot in your brain that if I try to invade it, a natural Force user will push back. So he goes to like Wedge and he tries to do it and there's nothing. He goes to Leia, who isn't very powerful at the time, and does it, and he gets a pushback. And then he goes to Kip and he gets fucking thrown back.
Oh, really?
And it's like a power scaling type of thing.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got a lot of Force.
But anyway, that's that book, not this book.
Sorry, no, that's different stories.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to see what else I had of things that I really enjoyed and liked about it. I mean, honestly, most of the things we've mentioned are some of the things I really enjoyed. We still have the Nick Ardoon kind of like showing up here and there. There was that Jixtus was working with Grisks.
The Grisk, yeah.
Which we had them before,
yes.
right? Was it the Last Thrawn trilogy?
Yeah, those are kind of like
believe.
what we think are the new Vong for the new universe, pretty much. But yeah, the Grisk are the unnamed terror of the Outer Rim, pretty much.
So there's that, which I assume between that and
but
the
like
Star Flash.
It's not that he's just connected to them. He is one, right?
Was he one?
He is a Grisk. He's
Well,
part
dang,
of their
okay.
organization.
Okay.
And he's the manipulator of cultures or something, right? Like he can like pretty much he created the Civil War that they found or whatever.
Yeah, he was putting stuff towards like all this stuff happening. I mean, he sent in
the unknown regions, yes.
He sent in Hapleaf, and Hapleaf had like some kind of like psychic touch powers or something like that, right? And like he was using him to get information and stuff too. So like he was gathering information and trying to push the Chiss
really
into
kept
Civil
trying
War.
to touch Chiss heads a couple of times. I was like, why does this guy keep trying to touch heads?
Yeah. So we could see the Grisk come in to attack maybe in the next book. And maybe that's kind of where we go.
They
into
seem like
things.
they're at the very least going to be a protagonist or the protagonist for the Ascendancy.
Antagonist?
Antagonist.
Okay.
What I meant.
I was like, are we rooting on him?
I've been.
Are we against the Chiss now?
I've been using the word protagonist for Thrawn so much that I'm confused.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, overall, I think like the book was fine. I think more so it was probably my struggles that caused some issues. I kept trying to write down information, making sure I understood the Chiss families as much as I could.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other characters or planets and stuff that were all new. So sometimes like making sure I knew what planet or what people or what like just that would be all mixed up on a lot of things. But But yeah, I don't know. Did you have any other thoughts or anything that stood out in the book? That
Not necessarily. I mean, it's the middle chapter of a trilogy. Middle chapters are always the most messy because they have to, like I don't feel like this. I thought like the ending of this book was good, but the beginning of it, I kind of had like a rough time getting back into where the story placed me.
Sure.
I'm hoping that that's easier for the next time we jump into the Ascendancy trilogy.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Are you just stopping talking there? Or are you saying
Because.
something else? Oh, okay. Like, did you want me to say something?
Yeah,
or
sure.
Are you saying that because when we're talking about what to do for the next book, I recommended similar to Eric. Like I felt like getting into this after having a little gap on the first book, like took me a while to kind of catch back up.
Yeah.
I'd like to go into the third book now.
Yep.
So that I can continue the names and information that I have now that I've been trying to keep in my head.
Not quite such a work to get into it.
Yeah.
You're already there.
Yeah, I'm already like these names are already fresher in my mind now versus like losing that and then coming back to it. So we're gonna go into Thrawn 3.
Thrawn Ascendancy.
I think it's called Lesser Evil.
Yeah, so we had Greater Good and then Lesser Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Lesser Evil will be the next one for next month. So if you guys have been following along, make sure you check out that book.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, I mean, there was one moment I guess that I liked. It stood out. I don't know why it stood out. I guess it's just the idea that Thrawn is willing to listen to people.
Yeah.
But there was like another guy on the ship at one point when they were being attacked by these like gunboats, I think is what they called them or something like that. And some guy was like, "Hey, I have a message to send." He's like, "All right, well here, tell Thrawn." And he's like, it's like, "What is it?" And he was saying that like the formation they have and what it looked like they were doing. And he's like, yes. And it's like, well, so what? Someone else was like, he's like, "No, but there could be meaning in this." And I like that Thrawn, like, he's willing to listen to whoever, but he just, rather than like, I don't know, attacking them or telling them it's bad or whatever, he's like, okay, what was your observations?
Yeah.
Let me think about that and use it. And
Yeah.
I like, because like people observing things and giving their information, like what is that from? They're all in the military. They've all seen various like combat or maneuvers or whatever. So everyone sees things differently. But like, what was it, the last book when they were like, Thrawn did this maneuver, and that's impossible. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's not impossible. You've just never seen it work before or whatever, you know? Like,
I agree. He has like Thrawn, I think, collects and studies what the precedents of things are, but he never starts there. Like, he has an idea of, like, well, this is how things usually go, but in his head, he's always trying to start fresh and being like, no, it's not about how it goes, it's how it is. I'm going to figure that out first. And I might use precedent to kind of inform that, but he doesn't start there as a default, which I think is his greatest asset, and what annoys everybody else the most, because precedent tends to be the thing that we all, that everybody thinks that we should focus on, so that you don't have to do new stuff, So yeah, he's really good at that.
Nexus said, "Did you guys catch that the ring Thrawn wants to return? It's
design, yes. So it's the same design that appears on his Star Destroyer, the Chimera."
Oh, the snake look and
snake
stuff?
looks.
I remember them saying about that. Yeah. Okay.
The intertwining snakes is the same design we see in Rebels and Ahsoka on the bottom of his Star Destroyer. Pretty cool.
Okay. Does it come from that? Because that was the ring from the
so.
one people. Dang, I can't remember what they were called. I don't think it was the Patatas, but it might have been whoever they worked with in the first book. Was it related to them, I think, but I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was the potatoes.
It was a potato ring.
The potatoes. Thrawn would have been a fan of the Egg of Columbus. What? What is the Egg of Columbus? But yeah, overall, I'm just more excited to see maybe how the whole trilogy wraps up. I think it's tough to, if you said trilogies, like looking at middle of the stories and just stopping there is not what it's meant to do. If you just stop at Empire Strikes Back or you just stop at Attack of the Clones, like there's no resolution because you're in the middle of this trilogy arc story. And so I will be, I'll be interested to see what my thoughts are in the third book.
Gotcha.
An egg of Columbus or Columbus's egg refers to seemingly impossible task that becomes easy once understood. Oh, Thank you, Gonk.
Thank you, Gonk. That was so helpful. Maybe that update really worked. I've been trying to get him to do that forever.
Wait, what? One of the longest canon books, Lesser Evil. Is it one of the longest canon books? Is that true?
Ooh.
I do not know.
Better get started now.
I'm gonna have to. All right. If we get a chance to take on any questions later on the book, we will do so. But we do have a few other things we wanted to get into before we do that.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we cover that first, and then we can try to snag up any kind of questions and stuff if we can get to those.
Sure, absolutely. The next thing that I have planned. I mean, it'll be a longer segment. I don't know if you mind, Aaron. I kind of want to talk about our video game thing now.
Oh, you want to do that now?
Yeah, I kind of am in the mood to talk about that.
Okay. Well, we've been talking about some things for coming to Wave Squadron, different like content things that we've been wanting to do. One of the things we've done in the past, which was fun, was in preparation of like Jedi Survivor coming out. We played through all of Jedi Fallen Order
together. Yes,
together
on the couch,
talking about what we saw and canon things and not canon things and whatever.
Saw the Order 66 Easter egg.
Yeah. Also, I think in preparation of a book, we played through the Battlefront storyline with Versio.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun too.
And we want to continue that.
Yes. So coming up in May, we're wanting to play through another Star Wars game. However, we're not too sure what Star Wars game that should be.
Which one should it be? Like, if you guys, and you're here at chat, this is why you got to watch Badonka Gonk live. What are some suggestions for games that Aaron and I can play together that maybe we wouldn't have an opportunity to talk about any other way?
Yeah. I mean, and some of that stuff can be canon. I know Nexus said about Squadrons is one that we haven't done yet.
Yeah, sure.
Which he said that there's a good time later because there's a tie into a book.
Gotcha. So maybe we can not have that on our list for now.
We both have played through Survivor, but not together. But there's also like games that aren't canon anymore. There's like the Force Unleashed games.
Force Unleashed is one of my favorites, and there are 2 games.
Yeah, there's 2 of those.
Yeah.
There's Knights of the Old Republic. I've never actually beaten through the whole game.
Probably my favorite Star Wars, one of my favorites of all time. And we've gone through our list of favorite games before.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of that.
But we never actually experienced them together. I think that'd be a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Knights of the Republic would be a fantastic one for that.
And it's always been fun too to like talk with each other about things that like sometimes I just miss stuff, you know. Oh man, I like that. I wouldn't have done the Order 66 doorway thing if you wouldn't have been like, hey, I think this happens. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, that's a story I heard online.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like the Mew being under the truck in Pokemon, you know. Like, what are you talking about?
It's Cerulean.
What? Lego Star Wars 3: The Clone Wars, says Dragon God with bits. Thank you so much.
For the bits.
And thank you, TikTok, for the roses. G. Paul and Cruzy and Moss Pelgo.
We got roses on TikTok?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, thank you.
The roses. Force Unleashed would be great. Or the Jango Fett Bounty Hunter game. I've never played that.
Republic Commando is a good one. Have you ever played Republic Commando?
I've never played Republic Commando.
Oh, man, we got some goldies, man. I can't
Force
think
Unleashed.
of what it could be.
Just playing through Lego games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things. So, like, I would like to get maybe I don't know. Maybe we can have like a poll.
I think that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take some of your suggestions that you guys are putting out right here, put them on a list, and just poll it, baby. And then Aaron and I are gonna play it.
Yeah, Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast. Like, what was the last one?
Academy.
I played that one.
That's with Jaden Core and Rosh. He's your buddy?
Yeah. He was voiced by Jason Marsden. He's the voice of Max from Goofy Movie.
I think you're right.
He was in Boy Meets World. I can't remember exactly what his name is. I think it's right. But he was the voice in it.
My Jaden Core was a Plo Koon dude.
Someone said, has Aaron played Outlaws yet? I have not played Outlaws.
You haven't played Outlaws.
I haven't played Outlaws. I don't know how long that would be.
Outlaws is a longer, more modern games take a lot more time sometimes than the older ones.
But I haven't even started it yet. I bought it, and I think installed it on my PlayStation. That's as far as I got. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that could be an option as well.
Yep.
So, and just have my first time playing through, talking about things that we see as we go through it and stuff too. But
sure. So I'm keeping a running list, and make sure you guys are watching out for that poll. We'll let you know, but we're thinking about doing some of that for around Star Wars Day time in May.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a part of a week in May, and we'd probably be on the first full week of May. Probably start doing it then.
Yeah.
But depending on what it is, we will have to figure out what we want to do, and then figure out how many streams we'll need for that. So.
Yep.
But if you are also watching this just on YouTube, maybe let us know in the comments if we get a chance to go through there and find other suggestions as well. But people here live have made a lot of suggestions, and I think some of them are really good ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Pod Racer game, is that one? That one's like Mario Kart, right? Basically. Not Bombad Racers.
I don't know about the new one that they released.
There's a newer one that came out.
I mean, I think it was just re-released.
A re-release?
But I don't know if it has any extra content or anything. But yeah, I mean, it just had tracks and racers. It didn't have like a a story necessarily into it.
Sure.
I mean, it was cool to see like different pod racing tracks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Like I think about like when we played through, like Jedi Fallen Order, and we were looking at like what's in the background that's
The
like
details.
what are things that you just don't notice?
Yeah.
What are things being said by characters that you're like, oh, that's an interesting little thing, you know? And I think that's really fun to snag.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't know what the Bounty Hunter game's like. I've never played that either.
It's wonderful, and it's got some really fun characters that haven't appeared, including a version of Asajj Ventress, but not Asajj Ventress.
Interesting.
It's,
okay.
her name is Kamari Vosa, and she's Dooku's hidden secret apprentice that has dual curved lightsabers.
Okay.
Is female.
Okay.
Kind of speaks like her, but it ain't her.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some interesting.
Was
stuff
she
in
like
there.
a Ratataki?
No, I
No?
think she's a lady.
Just a human?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, I wonder if she was like, you do that and she's a Ratataki, but it's like, well, she's not a
Yeah.
Ratataki. You know, she's this now, a Dathomirian.
But I mean, that game was made before the Clone Wars series came out, and it kind of brought her into the real canon. You know,
the real canon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So I think all of those games have some gems, and people that are nostalgic for them, I think, would enjoy that. I think people that have never played them before would enjoy that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun. I look forward to it. I'd love to beat KOTOR at some point. I'd love
KOTOR
to.
and KOTOR 2 are so fun.
I've never even played KOTOR 2, like at all.
I would probably insist that we did the restoration mod.
For KOTOR 2, because of
KOTOR
the
2.
ending planet things happening, whatever that was.
KOTOR 2 just sometimes, like, I always felt like it just kind of ended. And it's like, and the ship flew away and we're done. I'm like, oh. But the rest, it restores some stuff.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll have a poll. Maybe we'll run the poll on, like, Wave Squadron YouTube community and get some thoughts from you guys on which one you guys would want us to do.
Absolutely.
So,
it'd be fun.
Well, while we were on that, did you want to talk about more Wave Squadron stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because there's promises that you keep making, and they keep being lies, Eric. Lies.
Lies.
The people are angry.
I know. So we recorded quite some time ago now the next comic book read-along for the High Republic, There Is No Fear. That video will be going live. In fact, it'll be premiering this Saturday. If you're watching this right now, before Saturday, you can go to Wave Squadron right now, and there is a Remind Me button on that video. We're going to be... I plan on being there live on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I will try to be.
So we'll
probably
be in the
should
chat.
be good there to be talking with everybody.
Yep. We'll be live in the chat, and we're going to be... you guys, it's about an hour-long video or so, a little less than an hour, where we're going to be reading the first half of this 5-issue arc, and then in 2 weeks will be the next one.
Okay.
So,
but there's a premiere available right now?
Right now is a premiere available, yeah.
So you can hit that follow button so you don't miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, I mean, I know that, you know, I talked a little about this last Badonka Gonk, and maybe a little bit before that too, but, you know, because we recorded this before Acolyte came out.
Well, yeah, like that thumbnail, my beard is a lot smaller.
My beard is, absolutely. And, you know, I've talked about before how the discourse and botting and, like, all the things that, you know, the culture war that came around the time of the Acolyte, it really robbed me of my joy of the Star Wars fandom for quite some time. And I think the comic book read-along process that I was doing with a new editor that we were working with, I think it suffered because I didn't have a passion that I had just last year, you know, before that happened. And I've been slowly but surely getting that passion back after kind of like realizing, you know, I was taking this side of the stuff too seriously or too personally,
Sure.
You know? So, again, I think that's completely on me. It's not on the editor. It's not on Calvin or Aaron. It's on me, but we're doing it, and it's Saturday. And once we start, I really want to get into the because we have that one, and the next part 2 will be coming out in 2 weeks, and then we're going to have another High Republic set of stuff that we've already recorded too, and then we'll be getting to some of the other ones that Nexus has prepared for us in terms of like what order to do comic book read-along. So I'm very excited for people to finally see those.
Okay.
But again, we'll be starting that one Saturday. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope that you're there for the live premiere.
Saturday at 11 our time?
11 our time.
11 our time. Okay.
Yep. Eastern Standard Time. Which, if I said Sunday, would have been weird because of daylight savings time.
Daylight savings time is coming up.
Yeah.
Messing things up.
Anybody that unfortunately still deals with daylight savings time, that's going to be happening on Sunday.
Which means that for a lot of people, our next Gonk will end up being an hour earlier.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know. You'll find out. It'll be a post, and you'll be able to see where it says.
Sure.
So. All right. Well, that's some things that we have. We're wanting to do for Wave Squadron.
Mm-hmm.
May playing a game, comic book this Saturday. So
yeah,
make sure you check out the premiere, and make sure you guys let us know what games you think would be the most fun to watch us play and talk about. And also in that, I like talking with the chat. Sometimes there's things that they're like, hey, here's something else too. And in playing those ones, it's not about like, hey, don't spoil us. It's about, no, let's just talk and have fun with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
Yep, absolutely. And then for the rest of the show, I think, because I have it ready here, I thought, Aaron, it would be fun to go back. You know, I always talk about how Star Wars is generational and certain moments hit you differently depending on when you've watched them or how much other Star Wars you've consumed.
Sure.
But related to that is I printed out a list here of all the various changes that have happened to Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope throughout the years.
So from the initial, like, theatrical release?
Yeah.
To, like,
from the initial theatrical release all the way up until where we currently are with the version that's on Disney+.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk about this just because I think it's an interesting way to talk about how preferences work, you know? I think people tend to have tastes or standards when it comes to art, but then we also are just a slave to our preferences sometimes. Sometimes preferences, you don't even know why you like this food over the other one. You can't say why. You just do.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Because maybe you had a bad experience when you were young or something like that, or you watched something a certain way and then years later it changes, and I don't like that it changed. But people that watched that the first time prefer it over the old.
Yeah.
So I wanted to quiz you on what your preferences were for some of these various different changes throughout.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking just about A New Hope.
Just A New Hope. Yeah,
because it is the one that's changed the most.
Is it? Okay.
It is. I have 5 pages of changes, and this is cut down from like 15 pages. Most of it, honestly, I had no idea. Like almost every sound effect in Star Wars A New Hope has either been changed or retimed.
Okay.
Like, I'm not kidding. It's like every single scene.
I know one sound effect.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I know one sound effect.
I'm going to go kind of in order of how the changes were made. So these first ones are literally within the first year of Star Wars coming out.
What?
There was the original theatrical release, and then things changed. This is even before the 1997 special edition. So we'll go through some of those things. And Stealthy Mr. Ninja subscribed. Thank you so
Stealthy
much.
Mr. Ninja.
51 months. That's awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so Aaron, I think this one's pretty obvious, but it wasn't a special edition change. It happened before.
So this is like before they had like a video release or any of that kind of stuff?
When Star Wars first came onto the Star Wars, and then it was just the crawl started, and guess what wasn't there?
Oh.
Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope.
A New Hope.
That's one of the first changes that happens to that movie.
So when did they change that?
It was added into the title crawl in 1981 re-release. So 1997, that one comes up, and then it leaves theaters, and then Episode 5 comes out. And people are like, Episode 5, what's that mean? And then they do a re-release in theaters in 1981, and suddenly the title says Episode 4. The new crawl also capitalized the word rebel in Rebel Spies. It wasn't not capitalized. That was a big change. I don't know why, but they did it. It was not capitalized in the original 1977 opening crawl. Also, this altered the formatting of the text to accommodate 2 additional lines, which slightly changed the timing so the crawl no longer appears at the same music cue, which might not be a big deal to some people, but I always feel like my first watch of something is the most special, you know? When I watched Revenge of the Sith for the first time, May 19th, I'm not thinking about the amazing choreography and the production design and what George Lucas was thinking here. I'm simply watching characters do something, and but sometimes you have a feeling in there and then you watch it later. It's like, was that different? Like oftentimes it was different. And we're going to be going through a lot of those. So even the people that watched in the theater in 1977 saw a version that the rest of us don't get to see
anymore.
Including that musical cue, which could be a big deal for people.
Yeah. We didn't even get to the Star Destroyer chasing Tanef yet.
Beru Lars is voiced by a different actress.
They redubbed over?
They redubbed her. I didn't know that.
Is that for the special edition?
Now, no, I have not got from the special edition yet.
This is just all before they, like, this is the
These are just changes that happened in the first couple of years of Star Wars existing.
Man.
Now, a lot of these, too.
And people got mad about the special edition coming out making changes. They made changes before that?
Now, when it says voiced by a different actress, this also has, and I got this list from a very robust list. I think this one, I don't think that what was her name? Sheila Fraser, I think is the name, maybe, of the actress. But sometimes, like most of the things on this list, it isn't that they changed a line. They just took an alternate line from a different scene and dubbed it over the current scene that you're seeing. That happens a lot, too. I've removed most of those just because it was monotonous. But some of these, like the Beru Lars one, I think that's more what they're talking about, possibly different takes by the same actress is what happened. Because some people report being like, that's not how she said it. Why does she say it like this now? And that's one of the reasons. Is they actually will just change out the take, but use the same, visual.
So it might not even be a different actor saying the line, just a different line in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, for example, while searching for the droids in the street of Mos Eisley, a stormtrooper says, all right, check that side of the street. It's secure, move on to the next one. But it was changed to, all right, check this side of the street. That door's locked.
That door's locked, move on to the next one. I know that line, yeah.
No, it's secure is what people remember, but the door's locked is what you would say it is.
Yeah, door's locked, move on to the next one.
The line is also heard in a different voice in the mono mix. There's a lot of different mixes, too.
Okay.
But yeah, it was quite fun going through this list and trying to figure out, like, what are they even talking about with this one? The chess monsters now make way more noise.
Okay.
The Jarek.
Yeah, they make
all
little
that
noises.
stuff. Like in the very beginning, it wasn't, but I think they ended up changing that in the DVD, the 2004 DVD mix.
Okay.
So there's, and it's kind of funny too. They'll change something, and then in the next release get rid of it, and then the next release bring it back. So that's happened too. It's a very confusing time. Again, I'm trying to make a guide so that we can unravel all this confusion. I think I'm doing okay. Let's see here. There used to be an extremely hard echo when Luke would say, "Oh, I think we took a wrong turn." A lot of people remember this really, really, really echoey version of that line, and now there's no echo on it anymore.
Huh.
I thought that was kind of an interesting one.
Echo.
After Luke hands Leia his blaster in the chasm swinging sequence, it sounds like Dirty Harry's .44 Magnum when she fires it. This is present in the 1997 special edition, but was changed back to the standard blaster sound in the 2004 DVD. So originally, it had the .44 Magnum sound.
Huh.
Then they changed it in the special edition, and then now it's returned back to it.
I will say my preference is probably for the blaster in that
I would say
scenario,
probably, yeah.
But, man, I wish I had my original like VHS tape to hear if it had like the Magnum sound.
Yep. Man. In the original mono mix, Porkins just didn't have a death scream. Now he has a death. Now he actually screams. This one's, I think, pretty cool. The line that Luke said in the final battle used to be, "Blast it, Wedge," it used to be, "Blast it, Biggs, where are you?" And it was changed to "Blast it, Wedge, where are you?" for continuity purposes. Because there was no more Biggs.
There was no Biggs at that point? You didn't know there was no Biggs there? Huh.
Yeah. So that's something that's also been changed. Okay, so those are all things that found some type of change before the special edition. But the special edition is now where we are. And this is the time where I think, Aaron, you can tell me.
These are the ones I'm going to know probably.
You're going to know
I'm like,
this
I
one.
remember this because I watched the original, and then I remember special edition coming out, and I got the VHS tapes for that.
So you can tell me as we go through here, like, oh, I approve, or like, they shouldn't have done that.
Okay.
Additional dewbacks and search teams are visible as the stormtroopers look for the missing droids, and Imperial transport can be seen taking off in the background.
I remember all that when they were like, look, sir, droids. Like, there's like a dewback. Originally, there was like one dewback way back, and it was like a rubber like thing that a stormtrooper guy just stand on, and it like nothing really moves. And I think they put that same one in front of the Mos Eisley Cantina, and it just was there, and I remember watching that and be like, oh yeah, whatever. But then when you see the special edition, them moving and walking and stuff, like, kid me, preferred that so much because it added more life and stuff to what they were doing, and it filled the area of that desert.
Did your kids ever like doubt that they couldn't do anything like that in 1977, or they just accepted? It looks old anyway.
Huh?
You know? Because I remember when the special edition came out and being like, "Oh my god!" Like, that's not how things move in Star Wars. You know?
Sure, like that dude back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
No, I don't know. My kids are probably just like, yeah, this is old.
The farther you get back, people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that looks just as bad as everything else."
Yeah, right. No, it doesn't. Dang kids.
The dewback's a big one, I think. Let's see. There's a new shot of the evening Tatooine sky that tilts down to show the opening of the scene in which R2-D2 is wandering through the hills before he's captured by Jawas. They kind of did that for like continuity of time of day.
Sure.
And to just kind of change up the monotony of Tatooine a little bit.
I don't really remember that at all, so it might not have affected me too much.
The Jawa Sandcrawler has been revised. The sunset progression has been enhanced with the sky darkened and stars added to the end of the sequence. The scene where R2-D2 is captured has been tinted red to resemble a sunset.
A sunset?
Yeah.
I
do remember the Sandcrawler has a new shot.
Okay. I think I vaguely remember it being more red than before.
Yeah. A new digital matte painting of the Sandcrawler and Extended Sky was added when the Jawas are setting up shop in front of the Lars farm. Artificial zooming is also present. More vaporators have been added, and they disappear in subsequent shots.
Really?
Yeah.
I never noticed more vaporators.
I've never noticed them disappearing, definitely.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back. Man, I want to compare them now.
I know, right? It really makes you want to watch the
That's not
original
anything
cut.
I think I've recognized of like, oh, the moisture evaporators are different.
There's an establishing shot of Ben Kenobi's hut. I think that we all remember what we're talking about. That was not in the original. We just appeared in his home.
Huh. Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, Mos Eisley is bigger and busier. Family members of ILM employees wore costumes and walked around a blue screen mat. Their images were composited into the new scenes.
The life the city gets from the intro to Mos Eisley, I think, is so grand.
It's so grand.
Like,
it turns it from a gas station, kind of like Tashi Station, like it's cut, and this kind of just feels like it does not feel big at all.
No. I think you had like a shot, and then you had like pulling into like the stormtrooper stopping them, and then you went to like the cantina. And this was like, we're driving through the city, you're seeing spaceships, you see the oh man, I used to know what it was called, the big long-necked brontosaur thing.
The Ronto.
Mm-hmm. Like, I love when it drops. There's a toy where you can like throw jaws off of it and stuff. I remember that. But like those things being added to it, that one droid hitting the other droid because it annoys it,
I think
like, it just livened up the city a bit more.
I think Mos Eisley benefited the most because you're standing on the looking upon the landscape, and Obi-Wan's like, Mos Eisley spaceport, the hub of scum and villainy, But you get there and there's like two buildings and one guy with like holding the stick with the dewback.
A dewback that doesn't really move. It just kind of like does this, but then they replace that dewback and it's like it moves and it looks real.
I think as we go down this list, you kind of realize that like Lucas, it really bothered him the way that movie turned out. I mean, obviously he cared about the success, but he always maintained they didn't get close to what he wanted.
Is the next one related to the speeder?
Well, yes, technically. All of these are the Mos Eisley thing. There is Dash Rendar's ship, the Outrider, can be seen taking off in the background when Luke's land speeder enters the city. I realize that you're not a fan of that ship.
No.
But as a fan of Shadows of the Empire, that was probably like the most like geeky, like of having that in a special edition.
Special edition came out. I was probably playing Shadows of the Empire because I got it on the N64 and it was great. But yeah, I hate that ship. I hate flying it.
Yep.
Dash can fly it. I just don't want to be Dash flying it.
There's a blur under the land speeder caused by poor
Vaseline
image quality
right?
from repeated optical compositing to obscure the wheels of the land speeder with hand animated haze that was removed and then replaced with new, more accurate shaped shadow. So yeah, they put Vaseline on the lens.
Yeah, I was always told, and I think maybe it was in the special edition.
The
there's
optical
like
composite.
putting Vaseline on the bottom of the lens to try to hide it and cover it up.
Yeah, for anybody that's a compositor digitally these days, you might not get it, but they used to have to do that all on camera. There was no like, we'll do it later. All right, so yeah, this is mostly the Mos Eisley stuff, which I think has some of the best and some of the worst changes.
Okay, what's the worst one?
Let's see. In the cantina, Greedo now fires first as Han dodges the shot, then returns fire on Greedo. This is the most famous and controversial change to the film.
Okay.
So in this change,
Which changes are we? Yeah, because like
in this one, Greedo shoots first, Han dodges out of the way, and then shoots him.
Han does dodge. I feel like I remember one of him not dodging, and I preferred him not dodging. Or do I misremember that?
They make him dodge less in later changes because that scene gets changed so much that eventually they shoot at the same time. But yeah, that's probably the most famous one. And I mean, I don't necessarily have a preference on it, but I never saw the reason to try to make Han Solo feel more like a hero. I feel like in terms of the arc of the character, have him shoot first, and then have him also come back and save the rebels.
Sure.
There's a contradiction there, sure, but I feel like that is more of an arc for a character than it is trying to be consistent with the character.
Sure. Well, and he's there for him, and it's like, you know, what is he going to do? Is he going to shoot me? Like, if he's there to shoot me, I'm going to shoot him so I don't die first, right? So, I don't know. I don't think there's an issue with Han shooting first. I think I'm probably on the preference of letting him shoot first.
Yeah.
Especially before he says McClunky. I never understood the addition of that. And we're not even on that part yet, are we?
No. No, we're not. We'll get there.
Yeah, shoot him before he says McClunky. Let's do a new edition.
Let's see. There's some new aliens in the cantina. There's the short pause of the camera features a Jawa being bucked from the Ronto mount.
Yeah.
There's also the first version of this, a CGI version of Jabba the Hutt confronts Han and the Millennium Falcon's launch bay with new dialogue recorded in the Huttese language.
That was a whole new scene they added.
The new action footage in the scene was from the original 1976 shoot.
Yeah.
So they did shoot that with another actor.
I remember this from the special edition where they were talking about that because like they talked about all these different changes they did to it.
Yeah.
And they didn't talk about all of them, I guess, because they didn't talk about like a lot of the audio changes and stuff. But
yeah.
I remember talking about Jabba the Hutt, and he's like, they didn't know what he was going to look like whenever the actor was there playing him. And then Han Solo walked around him. He's like, "How's he gonna do this? There's a tail there." He's like, "Well, have him step on the tail." So like the digital adjustment of Han Solo for the tail, I'm like, it doesn't look great, but I understand why they do it. Whereas like the Han dodging, I don't think looks great either. And I'm like, just don't do that. just have him shoot Greedo then.
And again, this is just the first version that change has happened. We'll get into the next time they change.
Wait, there's a change?
Yes,
so
sir.
This is the special edition adding it?
Yeah, the special edition adds it. And
I don't know what
later
the
they
future
change
changes
it
are,
again.
so I have to know what the changes are there for that.
Okay, so I'll try to speed up here. Let's see. There's a new scene in the Mos Eisley docks as the Falcon takes off. It goes up. You see the stuff in the back and it takes off.
Yeah.
That's brand new. Love it.
That's
Wouldn't
fine.
change anything.
That's fine.
The explosion when Alderaan is destroyed by the Death Star has been completely redone using the Praxis effect, which is so named because it was used in Star Trek The Undiscovered Country.
Okay.
But that effect,
I didn't know they
which
changed
was designed
the
for that. Yeah.
Alderaan explosion.
I mean, a lot of the explosions were literally just firing an explosion on a dark set and then using that, slowing it down. But these have actual digital effects now.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the Death Star docking bay is revised to be more consistent with the one seen in Return of the Jedi.
Huh.
Most notably, the overhead shot when the Millennium Falcon has landed. I didn't know that.
They changed it because it had like a matte painting, right?
Yeah, and
for
they
that.
make it match Return of the Jedi a bit more. Which one of the ones I never noticed.
It's probably a lot smaller originally, and then they made it really big for whenever. I mean, honestly, that being different isn't a big deal because it's a new Death Star. It's a different Death Star.
You're right.
It having a bigger docking bay, sure, it probably is because it's like twice as big or something like that. I don't remember how big it was, but it was bigger.
Yeah.
You know,
like 400% bigger.
And it's not even finished, you know?
I know.
So like they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're looking at like, well, let's make it look similar, but then the scale's bigger on the other one, like, all right, fine.
I heard a thing where the guys that were making the models for Return of the Jedi were like, they didn't want to make a model of the destroyed Death Star. They just wanted to do a matte painting. And Lucas is like, well, how much is the model going to be? So the guy was trying to trick him to be like, hey, you just bought this brand new Lamborghini. It costs about as much as that Lamborghini. Trying to dissuade him. And Lucas goes, oh, that's it? Yeah, build it. Because the guy, he's the one paying for everything himself, you know?
Yeah.
I thought it was so
That's
funny.
all?
That's all?
That
Just a Lamborghini?
crazy.
Let's see here. The flashes of blaster impacts on some of the Imperial officers were censored. So in the original version, when you get hit with a blaster, like they would just set off these squibs that just exploded these guys' chests, you know? And a lot of them are censored in the special edition.
Oh, so
Yeah.
they hit less.
The impacts are lessened. I think maybe trying to just help with the rating.
Maybe, yeah.
Let's see here.
The Stormtrooper room, is that where we're at?
Yep, when Han
I know
Solo
that
was
one.
chasing a squad of stormtroopers on the Death Star, instead of running into a dead end, he ends up in a hangar bay with seemingly hundreds of stormtroopers and
Yes,
officers.
I like it so much
You
more
like
with
that
that.
one?
I remember him running in there like, oh no, there's 10 of them, you know.
Yep.
But in this one, you walk in, you're like, holy crap, run! Like, I can't do anything here. Like that was for me, I think a better change. For young me, maybe, I don't know.
Someone will have to confirm this because this one I'm not sure of, but they say that in the original theatrical cut, "Close the blast doors" is there, but then it's not there in the home release. But then in the special edition, it's put back.
I definitely remember that.
I remember too.
At least in the special edition. I don't know about the original because I remember it being so funny, of being like, "Close the blast doors,"
Yep.
and then they get there, "Open the blast doors, open the blast doors,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Ha ha! You shouldn't have closed them."
Yep. Let's see. 2 shots of the Millennium Falcon approaching Yavin have been completely reshot, and then the Falcon can now be seen landing on the 4th moon of Yavin. That was never the case back in the day. There's a new matte painting of the establishing shot of the Rebel Base Temple. That was a special edition. Additional fighters have been added to the matte painting of the Rebel hangar. So when you would look into the Rebel hangar, like the original version had less fighters than the special edition.
That's cool.
A whole scene between Luke Skywalker and Biggs Darklighter just before the Battle of Yavin has been inserted. That was not in the original. I can't imagine that without it.
I remember that not being there on my original VHS. And I think that's another one. Like the establishing shots are great, but also like just getting other times with characters. I enjoy those too. Like Biggs was not a very big character, I feel like, originally in that. Like he was like, yeah, he's there, but like it should be a bigger deal that it's Biggs, you know?
Yep. I think there's too many to mention all the little tiny insert shots that were made for the space battle just to liven things up. If you were to watch the original version versus the special edition, you would really wonder, oh my God, what do I remember of the original version? But there's just so many to.
That's interesting because people were blown away by the original one and what it had there. Like just adding in more of that.
I mean, entire lines are changed and added after Red Leader's unsuccessful trench run. The line "He's on your tail" has been added to the film. That wasn't there originally. The shot from the Rebels flying away from the Death Star is completely new. The shockwave of the Death Star exploding was completely new. This is the biggest one. And in the special edition, James Earl Jones is credited.
Really?
He was not credited in the original, but in the
Really?
special edition he is. So that's another one I would say yes.
I think you should do that, yeah. I understand. Like, there's a lot of times people are in something and they're uncredited. But James Earl Jones, like, he should be credited for that.
And then a fun one that I almost don't want to mention because when you know it, you hear it every time. It shouldn't be a huge deal. But Luke's theme is partially repeated in the ending credits music to make room for the special edition release credits. So there's a part where the music just loops and does the same thing. I can hear it whenever I see it, but I don't think most people would care that much.
Sure, yeah.
And it's just a change of the credits. So that was just the
just special
97 special editions. We're going to be moving on to the 2004 Star Wars trilogy changes. So let's see.
2004, okay.
There's things in here like the Jawa Sandcrawler stops outside the Lars homestead, and C-3PO says, "Oh, we've stopped," before telling R2-D2 to wake up. Wasn't
just an extra
in
scene?
any of the ones from there. A long shot of Luke's land speeder in the canyon with the 2 Tusken Raiders taking aim has changed. Now, instead of there being merely a moving white blob, the land speeder has actual detail. That's also a big change. And then here's one, Aaron.
Okay.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's scream to
Here we
scare
go.
off the Sand People has been changed to a higher-pitched wail. The old version of Obi-Wan's scream in the original and the 1997 version sounded similar to a dewback. The new version of Obi-Wan's scream in the 2004 version is similar to what the Krayt Dragon should sound like. This will be changed again later.
So that was more of the like,
Yes.
I remember it being a different sound.
It was.
I would like to talk about that other one a little bit later. We can discuss the 3 different ones I think there are.
Yep. There's a couple different other versions of some shots for the approach to Mos Eisley, but here we go. The Han versus Greedo scene is redone again. This time, Greedo and Han shoot at almost exactly the same moment, but Greedo is still fractionally ahead. Han also dodges Greedo's shot more convincingly in this one. And additionally, Han's original line of, "Yeah, I bet you have," has been restored. The 1997 special edition removed the word "yes," but the shot is slightly shorter. So the 97 one had, "I'll bet you have," but now it's originally, "Yeah, I bet you have." What a strange thing to keep changing.
Some of them are so little of changes.
It's such a little one,
weird.
but you know that Lucas is sitting there like, it's not right yet. And then here, a CGI version of Jabba the Hutt based on his appearance from The Phantom Menace now confronts Han Solo.
So they changed what Jabba looked like.
97 had a very bad model of a CG Jabba, and then they took the 99 version that they spent a lot of money on and redid the entire scene. But I honestly didn't notice this. When Han steps on Jabba's body to get to the Falcon, Jabba winds up as if to punch him. In the 1997 special edition, he just yelped in pain.
Yeah, I remember that. He went, "Row!"
Yeah, but now they have him like, "Oh, why I oughta."
Man,
I never really noticed
maybe I
that.
never watched it with like the 2004.
Yeah.
Is that like a DVD release or what? What kind of collection was
this
it?
is the 2004 DVD box set where these changes happened.
The box set. Okay, yeah, I must
Yeah.
have never gotten that. I wonder how it is on like when we get to Disney.
Yeah, and then in the compositing, they also added some shadow onto Han when he goes behind
Sure.
Jabba, try to make it a little more realistic.
I always remember him
The
just
scene
like
still doesn't work for me.
gasping and being like, "Ah!" and
Yeah.
like his eyes getting real big.
I think
I always remember
Han. I think the solution of having Han step on his tail just doesn't work. I don't know how you can make it work, but I don't think it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it works because of like, well, he can't because the tail's in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't plan for that when they shot it, so it's you CG, like you move him
Yep.
up and down, and it's weird, you know.
The Dianoga blinks now. Didn't used to blink.
I do remember it blinking.
The matte painting in the detention block has been extended, making the corridor seem even longer than it used to. They changed the perspective a bit. A couple retiming things in terms of like audible stuff, not as
Sure.
important. This one's cool. The writing on the Death Star tractor beam control panel originally read Power, Tractor Beam 12, Section N6, and Inoperative, but it has been changed from the Latin alphabet to the standard Star Wars Arabic alphabet. The word inoperative is panned and scanned out of the full screen DVD version.
So it used to be written in Latin, huh?
It was Latin based, so it was just English.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was just the Latin alphabet is what they were saying. So yeah, they changed it from just English Latin lettering to Arabic, and that happened in that version. The lights in the tractor beam control room are now green. They were never green. Now they're green. There's little things in here I'm trying to go through. Audio bumps. They keep trying to fix the lightsaber colors, and they kept failing.
Yeah.
Like, despite the revised lightsaber blades, Luke still appears out of thin air when activated instead of extending out of the hilt for the first shot. And then it looks pale green in one shot instead of blue. And that's always bugged me. And I don't know why, because it's such an easy fix.
I feel like there was one shot, and I can't remember. It's somewhere where Vader and Obi-Wan are fighting each other, and they kind of have their sabers close together. And I feel like the saber disappeared at one point and came back.
Yep.
I feel like I have a memory of that, but I don't remember which version it would have been or anything.
Sure. This one, in this edition, following the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Vader, as Vader approaches the closing blast doors towards the hangar, his lightsaber blade is now colored red and glowing. In all previous editions of the film, there was no glowing red animation on Vader's lightsaber blade. Instead, he was seen toting a tapered white tube with rounded off tip. It was just kind of an
2004 is when they made it red finally?
Finally, they fixed it.
Huh.
An audible thing that I never can appreciate, John Williams' score has been flipped in the left and right rear channels and has been quieted and eliminated from some portions of the Battle of Yavin sequence. So they changed some of the directions that happen, and then also the quiet whenever they don't want it there and raise it up when they do.
Gotcha.
So that changed a lot. I just thought it was funny. It's like, they did? I didn't know that.
I'm so stuck on Darth Vader not having a red lightsaber.
That's a pretty crazy one.
Up until 2004?
Yep.
It was just a white one?
Just for that one shot.
Just that one shot. Okay.
Yeah, not for the whole thing, but just for that one shot.
Okay.
A lot of other extra things have been fixed, but nothing that we really need to worry about too much.
Okay.
So now we move on to the 2011 Blu-ray.
2011
Yep.
Blu-ray. So okay.
All right.
77,
I bet you might recognize this one.
82.
After Aunt Beru calls Luke to remind him of the translator droids, she says, "Tell your uncle if he gets a translator, make sure it speaks Bocce." But the original line, as we heard it before 2011, was, "Tell uncle," not "tell your uncle." She used to say, "Tell uncle if he gets a translator, be sure it speaks Bocce." And
Okay, that sounds familiar.
I clearly remember her saying, "Tell uncle."
Tell
But that is not the case in the 2001 edition.
Huh. Tell uncle that if he...
Obi-Wan's Crate Dragon Call has been changed again.
All right, so which... I think this one's the biggest one. I think.
Yeah.
There's like 3 different changes. I don't know if they do it again in the Disney Plus one. I don't think, right?
I do not believe so.
I think it's just
believe
those.
this is the one that if you watch Disney Plus is.
That's what you have now. I want to know Chat's opinion too. Like, have you heard all 3 of the Crate Dragon sounds? And if so, which one's your favorite? Because I think
For me, it's not even my favorite. Like every time I hear the new one, it hits me like, oh yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I have one that's like mine in my head, and I don't think of this one.
Like the do-back one is fine, and I think them changing it to high pitch it to make it less do-back sounding is fine too. My least favorite is the and I'm like, what the hell is this sound, and why did you decide to do this?
Yeah, and then we saw a Crate Dragon Mandalorian. It didn't really sound like that.
But I think it had like the more high pitch, like kind of sound. But like, if you haven't heard them, like I guarantee YouTube, you can find like the 3 different like versions of Obi-Wan doing these sounds. The third one has always been my least favorite.
I agree.
And I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, or why they thought it was a good idea.
We gotta get Matthew Wood on here because I'm pretty sure he would have been working on it.
Oh yeah, we'll talk to him.
Who
who picked this sound?
Yep.
I want to know that. We need to have a whole investigation.
We do. In the scene where Obi-Wan discovers R2-D2 hiding in an alcove, rocks have been digitally inserted into the frame to hide the droid, though no explanation of him getting behind them or out from behind them is added, and in fact, they just disappear. So there's a shot, and I remember this shot very clearly because the rocks inserted do not look real. They don't look 3D. They look 2D to me.
Are we in the scene when Obi-Wan walks over to Luke?
Yeah.
Is that where we're at? And he looks over and is like, well, hello, little one.
Hello, my little friend. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There's just rocks there now, and then in the next shot, they're just not there.
Okay.
It's a weird change. I would probably lose that one, I think. The CG rocks, Nexus knows. All right, the shot of Han and Greedo firing each other has been shortened by several frames from the 2004 DVD version, so they shoot at nearly the same time.
I thought they shot nearly the same time before.
But Greedo was slightly before.
So it's even nearer.
Now it's even nearer.
Is he still first? He must be, right?
In my notes for the Schmodown, which this version is what I base it off of, I say they shoot simultaneously because I went frame by frame, and it looks like they fire on the same frame. So it's
you can't get much more like.
You can't get much more. My answer is officially in canon they shoot simultaneously. However, this happened 2011 complete Blu-ray edition. There's the change that happened was, and I don't have it covered here. When Disney Plus uploaded it, they suddenly had McClunky, and everybody's, what the hell was that? Who decided to do that? It turns out it was George Lucas who changed it just before he sold Lucasfilm.
What? Why?
He didn't even change it for a reason, like for a release. He just kept thinking about it. He's like, I want to add McClunky. So McClunky is a George Lucas added thing that was added after he retired. The power the man has.
Man. I mean, George Lucas, we wouldn't have it without him, but that's I don't know what McClunky is. I don't know why McClunky is. Like, I don't know what it's supposed to mean. Did we ever learn what McClunky means?
Yeah, it means this is the end for you, or something like that.
Yeah, I guess we heard something about that.
All right, so Luke's green lightsaber, or at least the one shot that it was green.
You know what? I guess him saying that, if you want to have them shoot at the same time, him being like, this is the end for you, be like, all right, I'm shooting.
I'm going to shoot you then.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
The previous version was trying to correct what the lightsaber looked. For some reason, it looked green. So loose green lightsaber blade during the training scene on the Millennium Falcon is corrected, though the blade still appears to be more white than blue for the rest of the scene. I agree. It still looks bad. I don't understand it. I literally could do this for no budget and make it look better. I don't understand. I'll go through my last here, and then we'll look at something too. Let's see. That's not important. Audio errors aren't important. Sparks added to certain moments of the lightsaber clashes during the battle between Obi-Wan and Vader. They now do that in the 2011 version. They never sparked before. And then the last one is the blue door to R2 and 3PO's crash escape pod has been fixed and is no longer blue. And those are all the changes.
I think there's one more that wasn't mentioned.
Sure.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But isn't there this is a sound effect one.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a sound effect added to the stormtrooper hitting his head?
Oh,
that they shed more light on.
Did I not?
I believe it was an accident originally, right? And they just kind of like
on my list, though.
don't
Maybe
pay attention to that one.
Yeah.
But then after the Jango Fett thing,
I
right?
mixed it. It was done in the right here. An audible bump has been added to the infamous moment where a screen right stormtrooper bumps his head on the door frame as a stormtrooper squadron breaks into the control room.
Was that in the 2004 DVD set or was that in the Blu-ray?
That was in the 2004
Okay,
change.
because I'm like, it would have been after having Episode 2 come out.
Sorry, I had a lot of audible stuff.
Oh,
that I
yeah,
skipped
sure.
over.
That was the only other one in my head that I was like, this one
That's a
stands
big one.
out. And, like, the continuation of, like, the Jango Fett, Boba Fett kind of thing, I assume they must still be clones maybe at that point, but maybe some of them are. I don't know.
Sure.
Because, like, now more in the story as we've gone on, like, you might take that out.
Yeah.
Because who are clones of the Stormtroopers now, and have they been phased out? Because some of the story kind of has been like, hey, we're replacing them. We watched Bad Batch, and there's a lot of that in that story beat.
Yeah.
But there's some of them that aren't, so, like, maybe it is. I don't know. But I just remember that being a thing.
Well, those are all some of the major changes. Let us know down in the comments below. Which ones did you like? Which ones do you not like? What do you prefer?
There's none that I necessarily dislike per se of the changes. I don't get McClunky, and I mean, that whole scene, I think Han shooting first is just fine for me.
I always felt it was perfectly fine the way it was.
But everything else, like anything that adds like the establishing shots where I get to see more of like the world building and the environments and all that, I love all those changes.
Agreed. And then we have here, Gonk has up. We're actually going to watch through the years, all the different, from 1977 to 2011, the different Crate Dragon calls.
All right.
And we're going to hear them and decide which one's the best. That's the Dewback one.
Yeah, that sounds much more like a Dewback.
Very similar, but slightly different in 97.
Sure.
I remember that one.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
I think I prefer the original.
I'm
Maybe it's the one that I've heard the most, but that last one, I don't get it.
It's like a guy who's like, ooh, and then
that one doesn't do it.
I don't understand why they did it.
Yeah.
I feel like the high pitched one, sure. If you want to distinguish, Dewback sound a little bit more like this, and this one sounds a little bit like that. I don't think I have any problem with them just making it a little different. I don't know who came up with that sound.
Sure.
I would love to talk to them and be like, hey, what was the plan, and why did you go with this?
I don't know. I don't know why they did it. But, yeah, that last one I don't think is it. But that is the current canon sound.
The 77 to the first one felt pretty similar.
Really similar. There's only just a difference of, like, scale, I feel.
Maybe.
In it.
But the third one and the fourth one,
yeah,
I definitely sense a difference in those ones.
Yeah.
This is the first time seeing. Oh, okay. Original sounds more like a creature. Yeah, the original does sound more like a creature. Last one sounds realistically what a man imitating a creature would sound like. Maybe that's what they're going for, is trying to like, I don't know. Wait, what's the realistic sound that they have of like that part of it? Unless it's meant to be like an echo or something weird.
I don't know. I don't get it. I love / hate imagining Alec Guinness doing that with his mouth.
Sure, I get what you mean.
Yeah. But no, I prefer the first one. I know there's a lot of things in here that I prefer. I do not prefer the Jabba. I just rather just not have that scene. I don't think it adds much to it.
I like the scene though.
It's not bad.
I like it.
I don't think it's worth having Harrison Ford artificially go float in the scene over his tail. It doesn't work for me.
I don't care about that.
Okay.
Like, I guess I look at more of like what it's adding to the movie versus like, does it look real? Because I'm like, some of the dewbacks, like, sure, it looks like it's a CG dewback thing versus like the rubber ones they had where it's like there's something really there. But I do like you get to see Boba Fett there, and it's established that there's that. It's like, why'd you kill my poor boy Greedo? You know, like some of that building and being like, all right, fine, one more chance, and for the extra, this much percent. Whoa. I'm not giving you that much, Jabba. All right, 15. Like I do like building up Jabba to be seen, and like the idea of
I agree
why he is in such. Why Han Solo needs this money and what the problems are.
Yeah.
Greedo gives you a little bit of that. But I think the Jabba scene gives you a little bit more of that.
It does.
And pushes for, Boba Fett's here. I saw him because he was there with Jabba.
He is.
And then, now we get to see Jabba again, you know? So, like, if it could have been done better, but I think I like the scene. But I understand the CGI aspect
I
of it.
certainly like Jabba's look better. I personally have never found that Jabba performance to sound like Jabba. I feel like every other time we see him in the Clone Wars and various times in video games and stuff, I'm like, I think it sounds pretty good. But there's something about that scene that doesn't sound like him to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, that was our A New Hope. At some point here in the future, we'll move on to Empire Strikes Back. But A New Hope certainly has the most changes. I think it's the one that Lucas felt the most that film escaped from him. He never completed it.
Okay. What?
Gibu has subscribed on our Twitch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gibu.
5 months.
Woohoo!
All right, everybody.
Guys, that's probably it for the podcast today.
Yeah.
We do have another one next month.
Yep.
We did have this one postponed a little bit, so we're going to kind of keep it on the same track. It's going to be April 3rd. And then our next book, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be
Thrawn Ascendancy, Lesser Evil.
Lesser Evil, yeah. So that's the next book we're going to be covering. From what chat was saying, it is a longer book. So
start reading.
I'm gonna start working on that right away and try to get through all of it.
And if that's just too far away for you, remember on Saturday we're going to be having our comic read along of the High Republic Part 1. So we'll be having that. Hope you guys come and enjoy because we'll be in chat.
Yes. 11 o'clock. I'm excited. So Saturday. You guys check the premiere and hit the follow button so that you don't miss it. You can do that right now.
Yep.
So, all right. Anything else?
I think that is it, my friend.
All right, guys. Have a good one, and may the force be with you.
Always.